Figure it out.
Hello, this is Adam Koralik from Figured Out Productions. The following video is a video of some kind, and I hope you enjoy it. Hey everyone, welcome to the FigureItOutcast for August 2021. I am your host, Adam Koralik, and returning back after abandoning us like a savage for a month is Rob. Rob, welcome back.
I went out to get cigarettes, and I never came back.
Yeah, his parents told me they took him up to a farm upstate. But it was weird. He actually came back, so welcome. But yeah, so if you're new here, this is a podcast that is done, of course, on my YouTube channel. It is also primarily a Patreon-backed podcast, which means this comes out basically the day we record it on Patreon, and then it goes up live almost a month later, a couple of weeks usually, on the channel. If you support the Patreon, you get early access to it. You also get early access to all my videos, as well as other perks like getting shout-outs, which we'll have some of those later. You can potentially pick a subject for this podcast, and you can actually be on the podcast.
And boy, oh boy, don't we got a jam-packed podcast tonight.
We do. But it's also worth noting that Rob is the DLC of the podcast, even though I guess we had a firmware update that screwed him up last month, if you will. The DLC is now compatible again after the latest patch, so he's back. But yeah, if you keep supporting the podcast, then Rob can stick around. So we appreciate that to an extent. I don't know. I mean, Rob being here is open for debate whether or not it's a good thing, but I guess we'll go with it. Anyway, in all seriousness, Rob, good to have you back. Now, you were about to say something. Go for it.
Yeah, so we got a jam-packed podcast, as Adam said. If you pledge, I believe it's $100 a month to the Patreon, you are invited to actually appear on the podcast with Adam and myself. And this month we have our biggest supersize extra jumbo with the side of fries podcast ever, with three guests joining us.
Yes, this has never happened before. So
I'm already exhausted.
Yeah, I know. Because of this, we've decided to switch up the format a little bit. So Rob and I will take the very beginning where we talk about a subject. Then we'll introduce our first guest. And then after their section is done, the next guest. And then after that section is done, the final guest. I think that was probably the most efficient way we could do it, other than just explaining it, which is, I guess, not that efficient. But that is what we're doing. So without further ado, unless you have anything else to add, I say we just go ahead and get started, man.
Allons-y.
I don't speak bonjour. But I assume it means like good or something.
Let's go.
Vámonos. I got that one. I know Spanish.
Arriba.
Yeah, that's just quickly. But anyway, okay, yes. So the first subject that he and I have, there's just going to be the two of us talking about, it's going to be kind of a brief one. We saw Suicide Squad. At least I assume you saw Suicide Squad.
Of course, I'm the resident DC guy. Of course I saw those guys.
Right. The Wonder Woman 84 Defender. That should be your new YouTube channel. Anyway, so I just wanted to get your quick impressions on it. We don't have a whole lot to say about this probably, but I just wanted to acknowledge that somewhat of a major release, all things considered, and we saw it.
Yeah. I don't know what you've got to say. I thought it was good. Not great. Like I had fun watching it. I thought it was kind of dumb fun. I love James Gunn as a director. I love his work on the Guardians of the Galaxy films, and yeah, this just felt like kind of like a fan fiction like little story. Just like, oh, let's just hire a bunch of James Gunn's best friends and family members to like die within the first 10 minutes and do this really schlocky R-rated movie. I enjoyed it. I liked some of the characters a lot more than I thought. I liked the rat girl, whatever her rat catcher, I think her name was. By the end, I'm like, yeah, she's the fucking best. John Cena, I don't really care for as an actor. Like, I really have to be in the mood for a movie of his. But I thought he was really funny as Peacemaker in this movie. It was just kind of irreverent and funny and stupid. They fight a giant starfish at the end from space. And then, like James Gunn, like always does, he makes you think a bit deeper than you thought you were going to. And he, like, the starfish was, like, peaceful and, like, he just wanted to be left alone in space and humanity, like, did this to him. It's like, yeah, I enjoyed it. What'd you think?
I do not really disagree with anything you said, which annoys me because you basically said it. I had to basically watch this with two different mindsets. One is the standalone film, how am I going to enjoy it on its own? In that regard, it was quite good. It had a lot of... one thing I really found about it that was amusing was it kind of messed with your expectations, but in a good way, unlike, say, The Last Jedi. Like, for example, the scene where they're like, okay, we need to get into the jungle and we need to, like, kill all these guys and free our person, right? And so they do that, only to find out those are their allies that they killed the whole time. I thought that was amazing.
Yeah.
Stuff like that. James Gunn is fantastic at just making ensemble movies. He just is. He's clearly very good at it. And DC made the right choice in going ahead and getting him. So overall, as a standalone film, I enjoyed it. But then I have that nerd hat where I have to kind of be like, okay, how does this mesh with the DC expanded universe of films? And the truth is, it doesn't, but that's because nothing can. I mean, this movie has to exist in the same universe as, like, Wonder Woman 84. Which is not possible. Like, everything about it. Like, but that's what happens when you make a collective universe but don't really have a plan. I don't know if I respect DC for powering through it, or if I kind of hate them for not wiping the slate clean and doing it correctly. So that's a completely separate issue. But I mean, it does have references to pre-existing DC movie properties, namely, most notably, the original Suicide Squad, the David Ayer one that nobody liked. You have some returning cast members and a couple of vague references to the events of that film. We know now that Idris Elba was supposed to be the Will Smith character,
Deadshot.
Deadshot, but he didn't want to do it, so they just changed the name of the character. And then they just put Idris Elba in it. So it's like, okay, that makes sense, but he's basically the exact same character with, like, the same exact history and storyline, and I think that's one of the weakest faults, because if you're gonna essentially replace him with an entirely new character, don't make it so obvious that you're just changing his name on paper and changing the actor, because he has, like, the exact same story. So it's kind of weird to make a sequel but then keep, like, one element of it exactly the same. But whatever, it's kind of the Suicide Squad movie we were supposed to get, but keeping elements of the first one.
I mean, let's be honest though. This was just this entire movie was a vehicle for Margot Robbie as Harley Quinn. This was her movie. This was her movie. That's the only reason they did. You know,
which is weird too, because she's now had 2 other movies of playing that character, including the one that actually Birds of Prey, which legit was her movie.
Yeah, like
straight up was her movie. So it is kind of funny to think of it that way. There was a reference to Superman and how not Deadshot, Idris Elba's character, actually shot him, which is interesting. But aside from that, it tried to do its best to kind of stay out of that playpen. But, you know, we'd be going down a different rabbit hole here, but basically I like this movie a lot. I think it was very entertaining, but in my eyes nothing can really fix the DCU. It's kind of like what happened to the Fox X-Men universe. Like, it just got too stupid because there were just too many bad movies in it that messed it all up. So I would personally want them to clean it all up and just get rid of everything, but hey, it is what it is.
In me, I generally... I agree that there is too many bad movies in the DCEU to really fix it unless you just totally wipe the slate clean. But I just appreciate what DC is doing now and just focusing on making, like, good standalone movies and, like, fuck the continuity. It's like, if you want your, like, in-depth fucking lore and, like, long history of character development and, like, callbacks and shit, it's like, stick to Marvel. But if you just want, like, a dumb fun movie where, like... was that Michael Rooker gets, like, a bomb detonated in his head? Like, go watch DC.
Yeah, I mean, that's why I said I'm of 2 minds. Because I personally love the idea of a very intelligently mapped out universe of my favorite characters like this. Hence, the Marvel stuff typically works pretty well. They did that. Minus a few bugs here and there, but DC obviously did not. But I mean, this is just going to be a long discussion about that if we keep going. So let's just deviate back to the actual film, which overall I quite enjoyed, and I would say check it out regardless if you're a fan of DC movies or not, because even if you're not, I would say it still holds up pretty well as just kind of an entertaining ensemble movie.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a solid like B minus, like just fun. It's just fun.
Also, I want to point this out. So a lot of the characters in that movie are actually pre-existing DC Comics characters, including the big starfish. So what I think James Gunn is very good at, because he proved it with Guardians of the Galaxy, is kind of taking obscure characters and then bringing them to the forefront. But he also, I read a thing with him. He basically said there are certain characters he doesn't ever want to touch. He apparently didn't want Harley Quinn in the movie. But DC kind of forced that on him. And
I heard he also wanted Superman as the villain in this movie. Initially.
That I heard too. I heard that too. But he said that the biggest issue is that he likes to work with obscure characters because it doesn't offend anybody when you change stuff, because nobody knows who those characters are. So it gives him, he can take the kernel of what ever happened to them in some obscure 1960s comic, change it up, and everybody just thinks, oh, that's cool, like the polka dot guy and all that sort of stuff. The starfish thing, which actually was, as a character, as a villain, if you will.
I mean, King Shark's in a bunch of things. I think he's in the Flash. He's in that Harley Quinn animated show too. So
right. So people don't really care if you change those. It's when you take a character that is so iconic and already represented so many different, like so many ways in a person's mind, and say I have to adhere to that. That's when it starts putting up roadblocks in your narrative, which is why he didn't really want to do Harley Quinn. And if he wanted to change up the character, as you point out, he wanted Superman to be the villain, which, I mean, it could have theoretically worked, but I wouldn't have wanted to see that.
I don't know
if he recognizes that.
I don't know if it was like a villain. Like, I think he wanted the antagonist, not necessarily like, because I mean, these guys are not good people that are in the Suicide Squad. So it makes sense that they would go up against like either somebody more evil than them or like a hero.
Yeah, that's where I actually think it would have been interesting if he was to get another one of these, to do another Suicide Squad where
it's possible at this point.
Where you stick with the Suicide Squad the entire time. They're the protagonists of the story, even though we recognize they are fundamentally villains in the universe they exist in, and you see them have to take on Superman or Batman or whatever from their perspective the entire film. It would be not Superman as like, I'm possessed by Darkseid and I'm going to destroy the universe, but like Superman as like the legitimate good guy, but we see him as the antagonist because he's constantly messing with them. Like getting into the true Harley Quinn psychology of like why she actually sides with the Joker is because she saw him beaten and abused so many times by Batman, so she perceives Batman as the villain. Do you know what I mean? That would be an interesting film, probably very difficult to pull off, but I think James Gunn could probably do it. But aside from that, I wouldn't really want them to mesh with the other characters under James Gunn, because even by his own admission, he likes to mess with characters that way, and I think I could see why that when you get a guy who openly admits he's not good at that type of thing, but does it anyway, that's how you get Ghostbusters 2016. So you can't just say, oh no, James Gunn's talented, let him make a Superman movie. He doesn't want to do it. You know what I mean? Like he would change it in a way nobody would like, including him. So that's exactly what happened with Paul Feig in Ghostbusters. So anyway, anything else you want to say about this?
No, I think we covered it.
All right, cool. Go check it out on HBO Max if you have that. I don't know if it's still up there or not. Their distribution system is weird. Or you can go see it in a theater. Remember those? Those were fun. Welcome back, Abdullah. We are going to talk about your subject now. First of all, how are you doing?
I'm doing fine. How are you guys doing?
I missed you, man. I missed you. I didn't miss Adam. I missed Abdullah last night.
I didn't miss him either. I mean, I'm glad you jumped on that, Rob, because that was basically the same thing I was going to say.
Thank you. Yeah, I missed Rob. He brings an interesting aspect.
That's the nicest, like, backhanded compliment ever.
Well, he's also your property, so you wanted to check on it or investment.
I mean, come on. What do I pay for? I'm paying for Rob there, and I got no Rob. Where's Rob?
Rob will send you a nice little picture later you can enjoy of his broken chair.
That's the real Patreon perk right there.
Yeah.
Exactly. I have my Instagram, right, Rob?
Yeah, exactly.
I'll be waiting.
Yeah,
I'll not sleep.
Slide into the DMs.
His Instagram is in the chat. In the description. Any of you can hit him up. But usually but just send him chair pictures. Don't send him weird stuff like Rob.
Yeah, just keep that between me and Rob and the Instagram.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. But anyways, Anyway, thank you for returning. But you had a subject for us, and my interpretation of this, and you correct me if I'm wrong, was you wanted to talk about the most annoying gaming accessory that we've ever used. Do you want to take point on this?
Yeah, I'll just briefly tell you about this question. You see, usually when I ask questions here, I notice that most of the questions I ask are technical, or they require they're just information. Basically, I wanted to change this time to make it like a more personal kind of question, and to introduce some sort of relief, from the technical sense. I was watching Angry Video Game Nerd, and I happened to see one of the episodes, which reminds me of how there are some accessories that, especially when you go to older generations, there are these accessories that don't make any sense. So with that, I came up with the idea that I'm pretty sure everybody has that accessory or that peripheral on a console that they find so annoying. So I thought maybe I'd ask you guys that question. So this is completely personal.
So Rob, do you want to go first? Do you want me to go first?
Sure. So most of the accessories that I've hated are generally control based. I mean, the easy answer for probably both me and Adam is the Wii remote. I don't know if that's what he's going to say, but I'll let him elaborate on that. Or you could watch his Wii recap video. I don't know. But I'm going to pick something weird. Okay, this is my little soapbox right now because it just annoys the fuck out of me. So the Xbox One Play and Charge kit. So as I assume everybody knows that the Xbox controllers, they they do not have an internal rechargeable battery. If you want that, you need to get the battery, and you need either a charging dock or probably most popular is the Play and Charge kit, which basically has a rechargeable battery that you stick in the battery compartment, and it give you a micro USB cable to plug in the system, plug it into the system, and then into your controller to charge it. And you could also play it wired if you don't want to wait till for it to charge to play it wirelessly. I don't know if I'm doing it wrong. I have never fucking had any luck with those fucking Play and Charge kits. Going back to the Xbox 360, the battery life on the 360 ones was pitiful. I feel like they lasted only a couple hours and just the batteries just died. And then even on the Xbox One, the micro USB cable that comes with it is a piece of shit, and it fucking breaks after, I swear to God, a couple weeks. And I don't know. It's it seems like generally I stick to first party controllers and accessories, and this is one made by Microsoft, and I don't know what it is, man. I swear to God, I can't stand these fucking Play and Charge kits. The controller that I use right now is actually, I use the Sea of Thieves Special Edition Xbox One controller, and thankfully I was able to get the dock and the battery for it, so I actually don't even use that micro USB port on it to charge the battery. Yeah, and that seems to work a lot better, but that was made by, I think that was made by Power A, so it's not even a Microsoft brand. So I don't know if you guys have experienced this or it's literally just me. But yeah, that's my off the back wall choice, is the fucking Play and Charge kits on the Xbox controllers.
So, I'm just curious, Abdullah, are we allowed to react to other people's and comment on it and either agree or disagree?
It's your podcast, man. You can do whatever.
No, I know, but it's his subject, so I just want to go with the way he envisioned it.
You see, the thing is, if it's Rob, it's fine.
So we can just take over Rob's. Okay. With regards to what Rob said, this wouldn't be my pick, but I actually do kind of feel for you on that one, because my 360 plug-in charge kit, the battery is completely dead. You have to keep it plugged in with the cable at all times, or it does nothing. The Xbox One batteries, the official battery did fine for me, and it still works, and it charges through that, as you point out, micro USB cable, though I never had that particular issue. However, and I even did a review of it back in the day, there is this Nyko battery set that I got up in Canada once. And it's like you sit it onto the side of the Xbox One like VCR model, and it comes with like 2 batteries. And I actually use them at my mom's house because I basically just use Xboxes over there as like media centers, so like Netflix, Disney Plus, whatever. But I only have this one charging station, and funny enough, like 3 Xbox One VCR models throughout that house. So I'm constantly like running around with different batteries trying to plug them into different controllers. And the thing is, the battery life on those, you're not wrong, like maybe a day. And that's with not playing anything. You're just turning it on to like find an app and then turn off the controller. And then you'll have to go and recharge it. And they take like a day to recharge. And then they only last for, at best, a couple of hours. So I think you're right about that. Although with the Xbox Series X plug-in charge kit, that one I've had 0 issues with. Plus it's USB-C, so
it's a lot better. Connection. Yeah.
But you're not alone in that Microsoft doesn't seem to be able to build good batteries, or at least they didn't. But they seem okay now.
Yeah, I mean, this is in no way like letting Sony off the hook like the PS4. Like, I don't have a PS5, so I don't know what the battery is like in that controller, but the PS4 battery is terrible. I feel like I'm always charging that damn thing. And once again, it's a micro USB, so it's like that connector just fucking wears down and dies.
This is kind of a side topic, but in regards to the batteries, though, I'm kind of like, I don't think either of them does it quite right. Like, I like that Microsoft gives you the option to change the battery, because batteries do die very frequently. So that's great, but rather than include the Duracell things, you should include the battery kit. Like, allow us to have that from the beginning, and then buy new ones that hold a better charge. It's a great way to upgrade the controller, potentially. Sony, on the other hand, I love that they don't force you to go out and get double A's, but if the battery within the controller dies, short of opening it up and replacing it the hard way, you have now a wired controller forever. You know what I mean? So you can't really, neither is perfect.
Yeah, I want to find the person that designed the battery in the Wii U Pro controller, because that thing has the longest goddamn battery life of any controller. And like it or not, like, I actually like the mini USB better than the micro.
Me too.
Because
it looks older because it is, but it actually works.
So it's like the connection's good, and I swear to God, I think I've charged my Wii U Pro controller like once in the past year.
Mm-hmm. Abdullah, you want to go next, or you want me to go?
Okay, I'll go next because I'm okay.
Because you're in charge. Got it. Go.
Well, I'm not in charge here, but I thought maybe because you and Drop seem to have similar ideology when it comes to this, and my kind of thing, it's completely different. So perhaps just to change the situation a little bit. So mine would be kind of interesting. It's not really an accessory, a specific one, I would say, but it's mostly something that I get, especially from the region I'm from, due to that accessory.
Okay.
I hope I'm making sense until now. So I would generally go with microphone accessory, something in which you have to say something to input to the system. Usually, in my case, for example, I can have an accent and I can speak words with an accent. But there are people here who have, an Arabic accent in their English, and that basically ruins the whole experience.
So just so I understand correctly, you're basically saying microphones have a hard time understanding you in English?
Sometimes, that's before I developed an accent. So that was really something annoying, when sometimes you would have to repeat a word or say something, back and forth, and the only reason it didn't work is because of your accent. Now, I don't know if a lot of people had this, but I remember cases in which I had to repeat some things, or some things weren't clear just because of the accent, basically, yes. But now it's all gone, but that's just an annoying thing I had with accessories. Overall,
I just picture Abdullah fighting with his copy of Seaman on the Dreamcast, or his Hey You Pikachu on the N64. Just like, why the fuck won't you understand me? I'm talking to you.
Yeah, it's something like that. You see, the thing is, as I told you, in my case, I developed an accent as time went on, through watching TV shows and whatever. But there are people here who have very good English, but the problem is that they just don't have an accent. So sometimes the word would come out in a different way, and especially when it comes to older technology, it may not really interpret the word like that. It's something annoying, honestly, because I can do that's just how I speak. But I believe with technology going forward, this is no longer an issue.
I should hope not. But it's kind of an interesting... I don't know if you're entirely done, but it's kind of an interesting segue into what I was going to start saying. Are you done, or should I continue?
Yeah, that's pretty much it. It's kind of it's not really an accessory, but more of what happens when you use certain accessories, like things that require voice.
Actually, I have a question. It's like, Abdullah, do you use like the Kinect at all, like the voice function on the Xbox at all, or?
I do remember using it before. I used the Kinect for a while to play certain. There was this really weird game where they put you in the movies or something. That was fucked up. but I remember that game. I don't recall if the voice commands though a lot, but I remember generally there are issues with the voice commands when it came to the accent. But thank God I developed an accent, so I no longer have that fear. But I guess that's no longer an issue in general anyway, with or without an accent.
So you both kind of jumped on it already. With mine, the first thing I was going to say, I've got like 3 answers for this, and I kind of want to elaborate on each. The first was going to be the Kinect. Now, the Kinect is by no means the worst accessory ever made. It's just that I really disliked it because of what it was trying to do and weave its way into things where it didn't belong. Like, as a microphone for basic communication, as like a camera for something like Skype or whatever, the Kinect was useful. For redeeming codes where you just kind of scan a QR code, whatever, like that was all fine. It was when they were trying to force integration into games with it where it never worked properly that made it very annoying. That was the side of the Kinect I really hated. And by the way, you're not wrong on the verbal recognition there. As someone who has a basic American Midwestern accent, it still had problems understanding me in English. And I don't mean just the 360 one, which was much worse, but even the Xbox One Kinect was very much the same way. So that goes on my list only because of the debacle of what it did as a social device. I mean, people forget, man, there was a time where Microsoft was requiring the Kinect. Like, every unit had to ship with it, and the console wouldn't boot up without it. Obviously, they changed that, but it was a dark time. So that's where that goes. The second one on my list, as Rob pointed out, would probably be the Wiimote. But that's only because first of all, it's not really an accessory. It's actually the controller for the console. And I fundamentally hate that controller. Like, I hate everything that it represents. The idea that I have to waggle a stick around to play a video game is more annoying than it is anything else. But on top of it, it doesn't really work properly, in my experience. I've tried it on many different Wiis. I've tried it on Wii U's. Everywhere I've ever gone, it's just like, I'm just sitting there holding it. And, like, on the screen, the little hand is, like, waving around like I have Parkinson's or something. And it's just like, this is not fun. And even in a scenario in which it actually is working properly, I still just genuinely do not enjoy the concept of I have to waggle a stick around to play a game, which is why I really dislike the Wii overall. And everybody's like, well, why don't you get a Pro Controller? Use a GameCube controller. Blah, blah. It's like, that works on like 5 games. It is really not the best way to do it. But that's, in of itself, it's another one of those things where I hate it because of everything it represented as an accessory. But as a standalone random little bullshit accessory that came out for something, the first impression, the first thing that came to my mind, actually, I don't know if anybody out there is going to remember this, but there was a company that existed very briefly. Well, maybe they're still around in some form, but they were making video game accessories for a time. A company called Docs, DOCS. And they would make like third-party controllers and so on, kind of like a Mad Catz. But theirs were like pseudo high-tech solutions, in a primitive age. So, for example, they made wireless controllers for both the original PlayStation as well as the Dreamcast. Ironically, I don't have the Dreamcast ones, which is rare for me. But I do have the PS1 controllers, and I remember getting those because they kind of set themselves up as like wireless is the future. We made wireless controllers, but they were horrible infrared controllers, which basically meant they worked the same way like a remote control does, where it needs direct line of sight, and it had the response time of a remote control. Of 90s remote control, meaning you press a button and then you're suddenly, after a second, your TV reacts. I genuinely remember thinking, this is the moment I have decided never to buy third-party controllers ever again. It actually, I like grew up a little bit the day that I got those controllers. Because I had some bad ones. Things like Mad Catz put out like a weird racing controller for the N64 that I thought was garbage, but I was still like, it's a one-off, it's whatever. But that Docs PS1 infrared controller convinced me, just do not buy the third-party stuff. Don't do it. And for the longest time ever, I avoided it completely until like literally the last few years, when third parties are now more independent. Companies like Retro Fighters, which have nothing to do with, Sony or Microsoft, and do not attempt to like sell their stuff at Best Buy. They're just passionate engineers making stuff for retro consoles. That's a totally different animal. But like the relevant, third party stuff, to this day, I still don't ever buy that stuff.
It's a very interesting point you mentioned. Can I ask regarding the Dreamcast controller? You said that there was a wireless one, right?
It's called the Docs wireless controller.
Yeah, the Docs.
DOCS,
Because
yes.
it's the first time I've heard of it, honestly. How did they account for the VMU?
If I recall correctly, it either had the VMU in the screen requiring extra power, or it was like one of those things where it had a little infrared dock that you would plug into the controller port, and you would plug the VMU in there. I'm guessing that's how it was done. Like I said, I don't actually own that particular controller. But if our memory serves, that's how it worked. I would assume it's the latter because of the power requirements.
And that whole thing basically sums up your answer.
Yeah.
That how annoying these things could be.
I think for a lot of people, like the wireless controllers I'm going to say pre-Wavebird, because the Wavebird
they're all garbage.
Yeah. I think the only one that was non-infrared that actually worked pretty well is, believe it or not, Atari 2600 had some crazy wireless controllers that had a giant antenna on them. And supposedly those work really well, but that's like literally the only example. Everything else is IR. I remember I had an IR Genesis controller. I think I vaguely remember like it plugging into both ports on the front of my Genesis or something.
Yep, I remember that. I know exactly what you're talking about.
God, that was a piece of shit. Yeah.
So it's basically exactly that, but for the PS1.
Yeah.
Same. And if memory serves, it wasn't even the DualShock era. It was still like before they had the thumbsticks, so they were even more useless. I just remember it being truly, truly awful. But it is kind of cool though. Like now, like I said before, you have independent, passionate third-party companies that go back and make stuff for retro consoles. So it's funny you mentioned the Genesis, because like Retrobit actually went ahead and made good Bluetooth-based wireless controllers for the Genesis.
Yeah, they're great.
That's a thing. You can go get that now. Same for the Sega Saturn. That is an option. Not the Dreamcast yet. That's a big question they're always dealing with, but that's a different thing. So yeah, that would be my truly like accessory that truly annoyed me into actually changing how I behaved is those crappy ass PS1 Docs controllers.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely subscribe to the, like, oh, it's like things are better in the good old days or whatever of gaming. And it's like, I will say, I really appreciate the fact that the quality of third-party controllers has, like, bumped up. Like, it's gone up a little bit, especially with the advent of, like, companies like 8BitDo or Retrobit, that do, like, recreations of old controllers. But it's like, Yeah, I mean, the kids today don't understand what a fucking, like, what a terrible, you know, experience it was if you went to your friend's house and their Player 2 controller was made by Mad Cats.
Oh my god!
Like,
have you've seen those memes, right? Like,
yeah, it's like
there's just like this kid has like the Mad Racer or something, and it's just like garbage. It has these horrible grips. It's covered in Cheeto dust, and it's like. So if you went to your friend's house and they had that, you're like, oh, so you're homeless. Like that's how it felt. Like it did not feel like they were even a real person anymore. Like it's just so awful when I know exactly what you're talking about. Kids today, you guys have no idea how awful that was and how crazy it would get because every company would make third-party controllers. I am not kidding. I have a Blockbuster like produced Sega Genesis controller right over there. You can't see it obviously, but I have a Blockbuster made Sega Genesis controller because anybody could just make controllers. And that is something that has been very much filtered out by now. And if you ask me, the reason that is because Mad Catz went out of business. Once they went under, it was like, and they had, to their credit, towards the end, they started actually making decent stuff, but their name was just so synonymous with garbage that I'm kind of amazed they lasted as long as they did. But nobody else really seems to do that anymore. Like, you get some companies that do it, like Power A, but what do they do differently? As you pointed out earlier, they don't make crap.
No.
That was the
thing.
I mean,
are they as good? No. I think objectively they're not as good. But they're not bad. You know, like we sell like Power A controllers at Digital Press, and we sell like third party, even like GameCube or N64 controllers, and it's like they feel a little bit weird. But it's like, I bet I could still kick your ass in Smash Brothers using one of those. It's like they definitely like still work, yeah.
We're talking about a couple of different things here. So I'm talking not so much as the guys who do the retro stuff, meaning anything that is no longer marketably relevant. So like like Retrobit will do like Sega themed controllers for the Genesis, the Saturn, whatever. And as you point out, there's those like N64 controllers. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about stuff that's like for the Switch, the PS5, the Xbox Series X, like right now type of stuff. Those companies, you no longer have the garbage manufacturers for those relevant platforms. And what, except though, then this is a big qualifier, I want this out there, that only applies, as far as I can tell, to the United States. I don't know how this goes for other countries because that does change. Like, I was literally up in Vancouver, Canada, just a couple days ago at the time I'm here. And we went down to Memory Lane. We went into a Toys R Us, which is still very much alive there. And they have accessories by companies that do not exist here. And are they any good? Don't really know. Probably not. Otherwise, they would exist in a wider region. And then, of course, Rob, I don't know if you get this because you do make content for Instagram. You do video game stuff. You probably tag a lot of things. I don't know if you ever check your inbox, but there's a lot of Chinese companies that here, we'll send you our latest whatever thing, and usually for the Switch. And it's usually just terrible, terrible things. Like, take our third-party controller. It's made out of, like, recycled bags or whatever. Like, they're just crap. And I'm just like... Yeah. So it's not like... I want this to be very clear. It's not that those type of products don't exist and get made still. They do. I would just say, particularly for Americans... we don't notice it as much anymore because it seems like only the cream of the crop has survived. Again, companies like Power A are still around making good things, but even relevant or known brands like your Mad Catz, which was famous for making garbage, do not exist anymore. And the companies making true epitome of just crap don't even have a chance here. They're never released marketably. Maybe online, sure, but yeah. That's my thoughts.
Abdullah, like, do you have you seen any prevalence of just really bad gaming controllers or accessories in the UAE, or are you kind of in the same place where we are?
Kind of in the same place as you guys are in general. I didn't notice something different here. It's generally the same. There's not so many. I can relate to all of these, honestly. I'm trying to remember examples, but there's nothing in mind, honestly.
I just want to point out, so like I just mentioned, like, Rob, you might get random messages in your DMs about this and that game related stuff because of what my job is. I get this all the time, and literally as I'm sitting here just checking my email, I got one from a company that's asking me to review a game called Gas Station Simulator. Like, that
sounds awesome. Why don't you do that?
Because it's obviously not going to happen. But it's that my point is, like, you guys don't understand the wide array of crap that exists in gaming that you never have to see, because guys like me have to filter it away from you so you don't get bothered by it.
Thank you for that.
No problem. I'm a hero or something. But yeah, anything else?
Yeah, there was something I wanted to add, like on an honorable mention to bad gaming accessories is something I said earlier, which is going back in video game with older generations. You see that there are so many experiments, right? That they try to do in order to get people into the world of gaming. So one of those honorable mentions I would like to mention is, if I recall the name correctly, it was the Roland Rocker or something.
Yeah.
Roland Rocker,
yeah.
Right, on the NES, and how painful that thing was.
Norm Caruso, the gaming historian, just put out a fantastic video. He gave a spotlight to the U-Force controller. It was like in a weird way, almost like a Kinect controller back for the NES. That thing is a piece of crap, and he did like this amazing half-hour long documentary on the creation of this thing, giving it so much more than it was due. And it's that's the Roland Rocker, the Power Glove. It's that's the golden age of just crap. But it's also innovative crap. It's I appreciate those things because this is early third gen stuff, that the way you played video games wasn't necessarily set in stone then. So it's hey, could we do a wireless controller? Could we do these motion control things? That would be kind of cool.
It is the experimentation.
Yeah, there was no precedent set for it. It's the D-pad had just come out 3-4 years before that. So, it's I appreciate those things just from a sheer experimental level. Conceptual, yes, exactly. So it's that I could appreciate. Yeah,
you're looking at it in a very positive light, and I respect that you're doing that. And there's probably a lot of truth to the, let's just say, the ignorance of how does one play a game. I don't know. Let's make up the rules as we go. I agree with you. There probably is a lot of that, but we have to look at the dark side of that, which is it's also a time, the third generation around there when we were kids. You have to remember, our parents didn't grow up with video games. They had no idea what any of this was. So anybody out there who's making a flashy controller that says your kid will love the new Nintendo wristband that does whatever, or whatever crappy thing they would come up with, would probably just they were basically hosing our parents into thinking that this would actually make the experience better. And I think that's also part of why we don't have as much of that now, because we all grew up with it, and we know third-party controllers are bullshit, and that you really shouldn't get them for kids. So a lot of us, I mean, not any of the three of us, I don't think, none of us are parents, but a lot of people in our age range are, and they're yeah, I would never buy that kind of junk for the Switch, because I know that's going to be bad based on my experiences as a kid. So I think that was also part of that Wild West factor, is just, frankly, ignorance on both sides.
Yeah. But it's I just appreciate, I really do like the kind of the level of experimentation back then. It's if you look at the first and second gen of video games, the first 5 consoles that really came out, discounting Pong clones or whatever, but the Odyssey 1, the Atari 2600, the Fairchild Channel F, the Intellivision, all of them have totally different controllers. And it's I guess that was, you like to say, it's the Wild West of video games. It really, really was, because there was just, as you said, our parents didn't play games, so it was trying to figure that shit out. But it's it's those generations suffered through bad controllers and bad gimmicks and bad accessories, So kids these days can play your fucking DualShock 2 your DualShock 2 slash Xbox Xbox 360 hybrid controller that every single system has. And it's a lot more boring now, but it's a lot better now.
As I said, there are heroes that filter through all this crap for you.
Yeah.
And we thank you again.
Yes. Yeah. You're the real hero.
Because you see, I'd just like to mention one last thing that Rob said. It is true. Although these accessories, they might be annoying, but overall they're what shaped what we have now. Those experiments, they've shaped what we have now. So thanks to those experiments and to people like Adam that we get to experience great accessories and don't have to worry about it.
Yes.
Yeah, I can't tell you how many random things have been sent to me where they're like, "Hey, do a video on this," and I'm like, "What am I supposed to do with like a wallet that uses solar power? Like, how am I supposed to review this? What are you talking about?" Like, or I mean, they never actually sent me that one, but like occasionally you do get stuff sent to you where I'm like, I can't do anything with this. I didn't ask for this, and this thing is crap. I'm not gonna make a video about this. So as I said, there are people out there that filter through all this garbage for you, and then try to point out which way stuff is, and hopefully you make the best decision based on that. But keep in mind, for every video you've ever seen me do of like, hey guys, today we're reviewing this thing, there's at least like another thing that came along that I was like, I can't, this broke when I opened the box. You know what I mean? Like, I'll give you an example. So a while back, there's a British company called Kaico, Kaico. And they sent me like a whole bunch of their like video cable adapters, like, hey, use our PS2 with HDMI output, all that sort of stuff. Basically exactly what the Pound and those guys were doing. And I was like, okay, let me take a look at these things. So I actually took the PS2 one out. I straight up just opened it. And I was like, okay, let me plug it in and just get a quick look at this thing. And I was like, okay, it seems to be running all right. And then I went to disconnect the HDMI cable, and literally the entire unit fell apart. Like, I pulled the cable out, and the whole board just fell out of the metal casing. And I was like, wow, this was built like crap. And that unit had a switch on it that would go between 4x3 and 16x9. And it had been left in 16x9, which is wrong for the PlayStation 2. So I was like, okay, let me see if I can kind of, even though the board is exposed, let me see if I can switch this over to 4x3. And I did that, and the button just fell off the unit. And I was like, this is the kind of crap you can't do anything with this. Like this, I'm not going to show the world this thing. So like I said, guys, there's a lot of garbage that gets made out there. And if you don't see people covering it, it's probably because it's really, really bad. The only time, I'm not the type to do like expose pieces where I'm like, we're gonna make a video today all about why this thing is awful, because that's just negativity. But if you don't see me covering it, odds are it was really bad. That doesn't mean I won't be honest in a review or whatever and say if something bad is if I feel like doing the video. But typically I like to find things that I think the world could find some use for. Whereas an HDMI adapter that falls apart literally upon first use, there is no use for that.
Yeah, so I guess that sums it up, basically. Thank you again, Adam.
Well, thank you.
Truly appreciate it.
Always. Next time we have to have Rob review more stuff so that he can take bullets for everybody. But anyway, thank you, Abdullah, for your subject. And
no worries.
All right, now we have a round of shout-outs here. The following people are all at the Patreon tier in which they get a shout-out. You can join at any time, get your name shout-out. You can come up with a subject that we all talk about, or you can actually be on the podcast, and as well as you can always get early access to videos and just support the channel. So the following people are Julian Espinoza, Leafy Poo, Luis Bonilla, Loke, Michael Kelly, and Trey Wagner. Once again, that is Julian Espinoza, Leafy Poo, Luis Bonilla, Loke, Michael Kelly, and Trey Wagner. Thank you all. You are heroes. Now we are back for the next subject, guys, and we've swapped out Abdullah. Miss him already, but we have new fresh meat, Rob. Are you ready?
Looks like meat's back on the menu, boys.
The elusive, the ever-famous Joseph Tamburino. He has been mentioned in like every shout out in like the history of this podcast, but he has never, as far as I recall, Joseph, you've never actually said anything to me until now. So suddenly you're like, I'm gonna be on this show, I'm gonna take it over. So what's up, Joseph?
Hey, Adam. So things have been going good, and yeah, you kind of have that right. I mean, I am in the Discord server, but my real name's not actually attached to my Discord account. So
For good
that
reason.
yeah, so that
Really? Are you a regular in there?
no, I'm mostly a lurker. I've
Okay.
been in. I have talked to you a couple of times, but it's mostly like most of the time like all the Discord servers that I'm a part of, based on like Patreon and other things. And most of the time, I'm just checking there once in a while.
It'd be
Right
funny
on.
if he was like Verd or somebody like that. Just like,
Oh
just
god.
like somebody totally like just annoying and like hi Verd.
Sorry, Verd, if you're listening. But yeah, if you guys aren't in there, you should check out the Discord. It's fun. It's chaos, but it's fun. But anyway, well, thank you, Joseph. And I want to thank you too, because you have been like a backer of the channel, like really since I created the Patreon at all. So first, just thank you for doing that.
You're welcome.
But then you suddenly, I don't know where it came from, but you suddenly had this motivation. You're like, I'm a be on this shit. So, are you ready? Do you want to get started here?
Yes, I do, and I'll be honest, the motivation wasn't like completely sudden. It just happened like, oh yeah, that the podcast is a thing again, and then I just happened to be looking at your Patreon and saw that a slot was available again. So that plus different life events happened that made it more feasible for me to be able to do this.
Well, that sounds like a basically good thing, although you presented it with a dramatic tone, so I'm not really sure how to read
I'm
that.
sorry.
But no, no.
It is
So,
mostly a good thing, yes.
either way, well, thank you for your patronage. And so we'll go ahead and get started with your first subject here, first ever, and hopefully first of many. But your subject you wanted to talk about basically was predictions for the Xbox Series X and PS5 based on the almost 1 year that they've had so far. Is that correct?
Um, Kind of, sort of. It was more like the basically all the consoles for like current slash next gen in general, based on what we've been seeing. Not so much just the PS5 and Xbox Series X themselves.
So, well,
More basically what we've seen from them and what that could mean in the future. So like not.
just so I'm clear, you mean so you want to expand that into the Switch, or are you like including the Xbox One here?
I mean, we could also include the Xbox One. I mean, I was more like in a general sense, like where we would think the industry and like the concept of game consoles could be going based on
Oh,
what
I
we're
see, I
seeing
see.
here. Not
Okay.
not like specific. What is the 10th gen of consoles going to look like? Because we're way too early to even think about that.
Well,
As opposed, other
so
than at least in specifics, other than like just general stuff.
So
like,
so to reframe this, rather than what is the future of PS5 and Xbox Series X, it's more like, what is there a future? Is there a 10th gen even coming? I mean, is that what you're getting at?
basically, yeah.
Okay. Rob, do you want to start that off there?
Sure. I mean, as Joseph said, that it's almost impossible to kind of predict this early in the ninth gen. Kind of where we are going to be in. It could be 5 years, could be 7 years. 7 years seems to be the new norm nowadays. But I mean, I think if I'm putting on my my Nostradamus hat or whatever, I'd probably say I think it's probably safe to say that there will be a 10th gen, whether or not it will be consoles that we would consider to be such, kind of using the classical definition, as in a box that plays physical media, that plugs into your television, that uses a controller, and does this. Like, they might not necessarily be that, but is there going to be a quote-unquote PlayStation 6? I can almost guarantee there's going to be something called a PlayStation 6. Now, whether it is that classic definition of a console, which I just said, is up for interpretation or debate. But, I mean, video games are the biggest form of the most financially successful media form in the entire world right now, bigger than the film industry, bigger than music. So the money's there, the interest is there, obviously. Video gaming public gets bigger every generation with the introduction of younger kids or more casual gamers. But yeah, I think how you see Microsoft and Sony operating now doesn't necessarily bode well for a traditional console as I've already described. Adam's gone along for a long time saying that Microsoft is going to position themselves as a Steam competitor, and you've already seen that. Xbox Game Pass is Xbox right now. Now, I've got an Xbox Series X sitting in the room next to me, and Adam's got one probably sitting in his room right now. I don't know what consoles
room next to me.
You enjoy, Joseph, but I love that thing. I really do like that console. I think it's fantastic, and I do have games for it. I do buy games for it, but for the first time, I decided to get a free trial of Game Pass on a whim. And just to say, oh, let me try it. And I fucking love the thing. I never thought I would really like that. But the convenience factor, the ability to discover new, cool, independent games, to go back and re-experience games from the 360 or Bethesda's back catalog or even the original Xbox is wonderful. They add new games every month, new stuff. I love it. So for the longest time, I was with Adam when I said that when physical media dies, I'm not going to follow, into that next generation. I was very hardcore about that sentiment. But now I'm like, who knows? If there's a cool fucking game come out on Game Pass, and I could stream this thing on my phone or through a little USB device that plugs into my television and not even need a console, I might do that. It's really an interesting world that is kind of developing for video games. And it doesn't necessarily bode well for physical media, even though the physical Series X and physical PS5 editions are outselling the digital equivalents today. I still think digital is the future. And especially for Xbox, I would be shocked if we got an actual Xbox disc-based console next generation. And probably PS5 as well, if PS Now is able to kind of pick up speed and really do something similar to what Game Pass is doing.
So I unfortunately mostly agree with you, save for the part about using Game Pass. I got nothing against Game Pass as a service. For what it is, it's fantastic at being that function. It's also cheap because it still has to compete with other things. Enjoy that while it lasts, because eventually, once it's your only option, that's going to get more expensive. But yeah, that's a different discussion for another time. I'd say in the interim, though, yeah, enjoy the crap out of it. But as you pointed out, Series X and both that and the PS5, the disc-based editions, are performing better than their digital counterparts. But that is only a sign of where we are right now, not a sign of exactly where it's going to go. Even though, as Rob points out, both of us are pretty vehemently opposed to digital gaming generally. I apparently am stronger than he is. I do not deny for a second that digital is the future. Rob and I are relics of a different era. And I would imagine a lot of people out there are probably, the ones listening to this anyway, are probably very similar to us. But physical media is dying, and it will eventually crap out. Now, the question I posed before this generation even launched was, does that happen during this generation? And the way we would know that is, I said at the very beginning, before they even launched, I was like, they're both giving us two versions because they don't know what to bet on. And if the digital versions of each console performed better, I would promise you they would eliminate the disc-based editions and basically give everybody a $50 gift card to the PSN store or a free year of Game Pass or something if you're with Xbox. And they would have pretty much called it a day. I think that was honestly what they were hoping for. So much so that if you look at the PS5, its design was clearly built around the digital edition, not only cosmetically, but even functionally, where we now know based on the engineering, like we've had actual engineers tear down PS5s and they're like, if you were told last minute to stick a disk drive on this thing, this is how you would do it. And in the case of Microsoft, they obviously did plan to have a physical edition, but based on the way they did it, I think that they were hoping by making the digital edition like basically $200 cheaper, that would be the one that people would really gravitate to, and they just treat it as a distribution system for Game Pass. However, it seems in both instances that isn't actually happening. In fact, of the four, the only one you can readily get right now is the Series S. You can actually go into a store and find it. Whereas the other three, including the digital PS5, that is not the case. So it seems like, based on this preliminary data, that the physical generation will win out this year, but it's hard to be completely sure of that. But I'll put this out there. Even though you see physical PS5 games, it's been a year. Rob, I've had an Xbox Series X almost, I've had it since launch, like I think you did.
Yeah, basically.
And I am yet to see, and apparently they do exist, but they're very minor. I'm yet to actually see an Xbox Series X specific disc. Usually it's just Xbox One discs that have Xbox Series X builds that are upgradable through downloading. There are a few, but so Microsoft, I mean, even though they've done really well with a lot of things, clearly physical was not their plan.
I will just to piggyback off you for a second. I do agree that the Series the Series S is the easiest to find. As you said, if I go on to Best Buy right now, there's probably a good chance that I can get one if I wanted to. I think that the Series S would be doing better if, on a sheer technical level, it was on par with the Series X.
Oh, definitely.
Because it does not have true 4K. It does not. It has worse specs than the Series X. It's not just like the PS5, which the difference between the PS5 digital and disc is literally just the disc drive. That's it. It's just that little tumor that's sticking out of the bottom of it. The Series S is a radically different design. It has a smaller hard drive, worse specs. So if that was a Series X without a disk drive on paper, I think it would be doing a lot better. But I think people still have the allure of getting the biggest and best. And right now, the most powerful console on paper is the Xbox Series X. So that's what they're gravitating towards.
See, I agree with you to an extent. I think that Microsoft, much like Sony, didn't know which way it was going to fall. And I think their gamble was people are more likely to buy it if it's cheaper, and we don't necessarily advertise the fact that it's less capable. We just kind of tell them this is your cheap distribution for Game Pass. Yes, those of us in the know pay attention to this and know that the hardware is anemic compared to Xbox Series X. I think that they were kind of hoping people wouldn't care. And I'm guessing that both sides are kind of disappointed in the results. I would almost guarantee there are people over at Xbox and over at PlayStation that are sitting there being like, I really thought the Series S was going to be the one dominating, and I really thought the digital PS5 was going to be the one dominating, and the exact opposite is true. Not that they're not selling well, they are, but I think that they were expecting some justification to get rid of physical media. That's what I think they were probably hoping for, because I think we all know, it's been talked about many times, physical media is a big disadvantage for hardware companies and game developers because they have to deal with the used market, they have to deal with extra reliability issues, they have to deal with actually printing games, all that sort of stuff. Whereas if they have complete monopolistic control of their distribution system, there's less stuff for them to worry about and more money to be made. So I think that they didn't want to do what Microsoft almost did last time around, where they kind of announced this gimped version of the console. They wanted to give the free market a chance to decide it, and tried to hedge their bets that the digital editions would do better by making them cheaper and really designing them around that. And it just didn't play out that way, at least not so far. And I find that kind of fascinating. It gives me a ray of hope for humanity. I mean, again, as I point out, Microsoft has barely released anything physically that is actually an Xbox Series X specific disc. I know they
I do see them. You know, I've got a few of them in trade in digital press. Like, they have like a little like logo on the top right corner.
No, you're talking about those stickers. Those are Xbox One discs that have upgrades built into them. There are a couple. Apparently, it was like NBA 2K21 with Kobe Bryant on the cover was like the first one that was like an Xbox Series X specific disc. But there's not many of them. I know the new Flight Simulator game is one of those. But it's a very
MLB The Show has one as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, and what about the new Madden? New Madden, is that
that's
one of them
probably
as well?
I think that's one. I think they have like white on the label. The truth is I haven't even seen one. That's how uncommon they are.
Yeah, I'd have to check to see what my brother-in-law's Series X game says. I know that's the game that came with the bundle I managed to get for him in this last GameStop restock of the Series X, but
yeah, Joseph, I'm curious, since like this is our first time really talking together. Like, do you have a PlayStation 5? Do you have a Series X or S?
I do have a PlayStation 5. I don't have a Series X, but I'm currently staying with my sister and my brother-in-law, and I managed to get him one, which is part of what actually prompted me towards this topic instead of something else. Now that I finally got to actually see the Series X in action, and like Adam says, it's like, yeah, it's basically a physical firmware update.
Yeah.
And like I've joked with my friends about the PS5. It's like, yeah, the PS4 Pro 2 is great, but it seems like this gen, like at least as far as like playing games goes, it again is basically just seems like a continuation of last time. Yeah. So that plus Adam's mentioning of like engineers being like, yeah, in the PS5 this disk drive had to be added in last minute, kind of got me thinking about this and like on the whole viability of there actually being console generations as we know them in the future. Like there'll probably always be beefier hardware and stuff like that, but I could easily see like Sony and Microsoft eventually just like going like, okay, yeah, PlayStation is PlayStation, Xbox and Xbox, and like maybe every couple of years and making a new Pro version and eventually like cutting some of the older games off, but not necessarily actually like doing a hardline PS4/PS5/PS6 thing.
So essentially turning game consoles into the cell phone model.
Yeah, or the PC.
Yeah, well, okay, so that's very possible that could be a thing. I think that, and Rob was talking about it earlier, it really depends on the direction that each company goes. So give me a minute here while I kind of elaborate. I think that Sony will stick with a traditional game console for a while, depending on how this turns out. Again, if the disc-based one continues, it would not surprise me all that much if they go with some sort of disc-based PS6, depending on when this happens. If this happens in like 10 years, probably not. But if this happens in 5 years, yeah, maybe. Sony, as of late, has done a lot of shady things. And it's like where I want them to be good because historically speaking, they're very good about physical media and all that sort of stuff. But in the Jim Ryan era, I don't put it past them to do something monumentally stupid. Like the CMOS battery bomb issue, and now that whole thing about how they're not upgrading games even though they said they would, and all that sort of stuff. So it always, I'm more concerned about their willingness to stick with physical media when Jim Ryan in particular, the guy who doesn't understand why people would want to play previous gen games, when that guy is at the helm deciding whether or not we're allowed to play previous gen stuff, I'm a little worried.
Dude, I mean, like, Ryan almost feels like the Don Matrick of PlayStation nowadays.
Oh, he definitely really is, for sure.
That is a fantastic way to put that, Rob. Yeah, he's the Don Matrick. For those who don't remember, Don Matrick is a guy who basically created the entire Xbox One debacle at the beginning. Anyway, so their future, I would say, I optimistically want to believe that Sony would give you a traditional PS6 if the disc edition of PS5 continues to perform well. But with Jim Ryan as a massive X factor, I really don't know. It depends on how quickly they fire him. Because at some point, I have to assume he's going to do something really stupid that does that. But okay, so that's them. With the Xbox Series X and Xbox's future, Rob said this too. Like I've maintained for a long time that Microsoft, I mean, this is before we even had a name for it. Microsoft wanted to create a digital distribution system for the Xbox and implant it on different hardware. They now have that system. It's called Game Pass, as he pointed out. The trick now is getting it onto other things. In Microsoft's case, this generation, it made the most sense to continue to have their own hardware. But as we've all been discussing, their hardware isn't that flashy. It's a physical firmware update that just continues the exact same ecosystem, and that's how it's meant to feel. Like, it's just, hey, that ease of upgrading with Xbox is there. If you can get Game Pass onto other systems, meaning, a PC, potentially PlayStation, and we'll talk about Nintendo in a minute, then Microsoft has already won what they're trying to do, which is just be a digital distribution system. Which personally I hate, because that will be the death of physical media, considering everything that they own and their unwillingness to cooperate with companies like Limited Run Games and so on and so forth. Like, they're not good about the physical media side of things. And as we've said, they've had a console for nearly a year, and there's only a handful of physical Xbox Series X games specifically. So,
which means there's only a handful of physical Xbox Series X games, because all the Xbox One ones, all the discs that say Xbox One and Series X and S on them are just the Xbox build, and you download the X or S build, right?
Precisely, yeah. At least that's my understanding of it. I mean, and there might be some cases where the Xbox Series X build is on there and it just waters it down or something for an Xbox One. I don't know.
But what's the difference? It's like there have been plenty of games that are released now that have the Xbox One version, is $60, and the Series X one is $70. I would have to believe that the content on the disc is the Series X version in that case.
I agree.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
If that's the situation, yes, of course that's true, Rob. But there's also a lot of games like, all right, Assassin's Creed Valhalla by Ubisoft. It has the Xbox Series X logo in the upper right corner, but it is actually only the Xbox One base disc. Whereas they released a separate PS4 edition and a separate PS5 edition of that exact same game. Now, maybe with Ubisoft, because they're pretty good about releasing stuff a lot, they'll probably put out some sort of Xbox Series X specific build with all the DLC or something later. But that's just a one-off case. But in general, that seems to be how Xbox is working. And they kind of go with this vibe of, like, it's all about having it all under the Xbox ecosystem, which I understand the convenience of, but the future-proof side of me really doesn't like that. But that's a separate thing. So I would guess that Microsoft will very heavily lean into digital, and they may not even release their own box in the future. Although I believe if they do a 10th gen box, Microsoft in particular, I cannot imagine them committing to a disk drive.
Yeah, I mean, here's the difference between Sony and Microsoft too. Microsoft has the money and the technological ability to maintain servers to stream games. Xbox Game Pass Ultimate with xCloud is the future of that company. Now, I think if anybody is in a position to do that and have an all digital service, like as their next quote unquote next gen console, Xbox would. Sony, I feel, would need at least a box. Now, like, if it's a box with a bunch of graphics cards in it and it calls itself the PlayStation 6, c'est la vie, that's it. But I think Microsoft, I think they will be, despite how popular the Series X is or how well it does in the long run of this generation, I think they're better positioned to go to a strictly digital or even streaming service as their model in the next gen.
I completely agree with you. But that's because they've been building around that concept since before the Xbox One even launched. Like, they've been doing that for 10 years. They've been trying to build up that ecosystem.
Yeah, if they could have done it back when the original Xbox was being made, they would have done that. They didn't even want to be the ones building the Xbox hardware in the first place. They wanted other computer manufacturers to do it, and they told Microsoft, no, we can't make money off this if we do it this way for the price point you want.
Hence the NVIDIA debacle.
Yeah.
That's a different story, everybody, for us old guys. But anyway, so yeah, I with the Xbox Series X, man, like I like it, but I cry for its future and everything it represents. I mean, if you look at, again, you're using the ecosystem. For those of us who have Xbox games with gold, have you noticed how many different times Microsoft has tried to wean people off of that and throw them onto Game Pass? To the point where they were like, we'll raise the price on it. We might discontinue the service. We're going to start only putting bad games on there. And so, because they're just trying to push people to get to Game Pass so that they can discontinue it entirely. Because the more people that are already on Game Pass, the less there are to put up any sort of stink when they're like, Xbox Series X10 XXX Ultimate Edition, whatever the hell the next one's going to be called. I don't even know what you call them at this point. Is going to be all digital, but it's okay because you have Game Pass. You're just bringing Game Pass to better hardware with newer games. Like, that is a really easy pitch when your entire base is already on there.
Yeah,
and I think that's if I'm them and that's my goal. That's the secret genius of this generation, with them having barely any physical editions of Xbox Series X specific stuff, because they're just getting you ready for it. I think that'll be a harder pill to swallow for the PlayStation fans, because, I mean, we just saw when they even kind of attempted that, when they're like, hey, we're shutting down PSP servers and PS Vita servers and PS3 servers. You guys all saw what happened. The internet went nuts with that, and they had to reverse all of that. But as you pointed out, Rob, Microsoft is in a better position for being able to catalog and keep all this stuff active. And it's very clear that was part of their plan. Whereas Sony just kind of, Jim Ryan's like, screw it, they're old, cut them off, who cares? And that doesn't work. You can't just tell people all their stuff is about to become junk. You have to really slowly wean them off of that. And Sony didn't do themselves any favors by not making the PS3 backwards compatible, or making games, the PS5 backwards compatible with the PS3. If they had done that, I guarantee there would have been a lot less pissed off people.
Oh yeah, no, definitely. I mean, granted, with how hard the PS5s are still defined, I mean, people would have still been pissed, but...
Yeah, but I mean, I'm just saying, it shows a true lack of respect for your own legacy and your own history, and a lack of understanding of the market. Like, Jim Ryan, to me, seems like a guy who gets his video game news from the New York Times and not anywhere else. Meaning he doesn't really know what's going on with it, because that's not where you get... No gamer gets their news from New York Times, is my point. So... it's unfortunate that a guy like that is the one in charge, but whatever. Now, we've been talking about the two of these because they're the super most relevant. Obviously, PC's its own thing, and Steam and Valve are fine. That's its own debate, because you could talk about other PC competitors, things like Epic and whatever, but that's really not my wheelhouse. But the other one we barely even mentioned was Nintendo. Nintendo is its own glitchy anomaly in video games that I think everybody knows throughout history. They do everything wrong, and somehow they do better than everybody else. That's just how they're able to work, beat of their own drum. But
yeah, except when they don't. But
yeah, the only two times it ever didn't work out for them was the Virtual Boy and the Wii U. Every other time they've at least been successful, if not insanely successful. Like, I hate the Nintendo Wii, but I do not deny its success for a second. But anyway, so Nintendo, I think we're gonna get, probably sooner than later, actually. I would bet that we get a true Nintendo Switch replacement. Everybody was talking about Switch Pro, and then we got the OLED Switch, which was a disappointment, blah, blah, blah. I wouldn't be surprised if eventually you get some sort of Switch Pro, but I'm really thinking they're just gearing up for whatever the Switch's true successor is. Nintendo, historically, especially with its portables, has a history of doing things in families. And so I'm guessing whatever it is would be backwards compatible with the Switch, but would also be like, you know, the Switch carts are now 128 gigabytes a card, and they basically have the capability of like a PS4 Pro. You know, I mean, Nintendo's not going to ever go back
At
to
best.
trying to. Yeah. Nintendo's never going to go back to trying to compete directly on a hardware level with Sony and Microsoft. They're not doing that anymore, and they never will. But I could easily see them coming out with another physical piece of hardware probably in the next 3 to 5 years.
Yeah. I mean, Nintendo said last year that the Switch was about halfway through its lifespan.
There you go.
So it's like, I would say 3 years is when you might start hearing rumors about it. I think the earliest that's
there's rumors every day. That's different.
Well,
yeah, but I'm not talking about like Switch 4K confirms.
Pro.
Like, I'm talking about like, because you remember when it was Project NX and there was I think it's going to be like a portable hybrid thing, and then you got the rumor like about a year before its announcement that it had detachable controllers or something like that. So it's like you're going to get like little leaks here or there, or little nuggets of information in about 3 years.
I'd say the first credible rumors will probably be in about 2 years.
It's probably 2.
But I don't think that the thing is going to release until probably 2025 or late 2024 if it does.
Late 2024 is about when I think they would do it, or early 2025. Maybe if they want to stick with that random March release date that they did for Switch.
It worked well for them, right?
It did, and that's why I think they'll do it. Like I said, Nintendo has a history of doing stuff in families, meaning like they you have the cartridge early era family, then you have like the GameCube, Wii U family. Where they kind of keep that tech all together.
You have the 3 Game Boys.
The 3 Game Boys, then you
DSs.
switch over to the DS line. So the Switch is the birth of a new family. I mean, Virtual Boy technically goes into the Game Boy family, but the Switch is the birth of that, and my guess is they'll stick with everything that worked, including, hey, we're not supposed to launch in March, but it was the best-selling thing ever, so I guess do it.
Don't mess with success.
I think the Switch 2, Super Switch, whatever the next Switch replacement will be, might actually be a little bit earlier than what you two are predicting, just based on Nintendo's past experience with Nintendo's like home console releases. Because like with the Wii to the Wii U, Nintendo did not wait as long as Sony and Microsoft did to go to the 8th gen. They put the Wii U out like after like 5 or 6 years.
But that was because the Wii was criminally underpowered on launch. Like they literally they treaded water like with the casual crowd and doing their own stuff, but by the end of it, the thing was basically a GameCube in the year 2012. It just couldn't handle it anymore, That's what, that was like a technological necessity for them. I believe that created the launch for the Switch a year earlier than the Xbox One and PS4.
You mean the Wii U?
The Wii U,
but well, each exists under different circumstances. But essentially, Rob is right about the technical limitations causing them problems, because if they want third-party development, there's only a small window of crossover there. With the Wii U, I think that they were expecting, and this is clear in the early launch titles, they were expecting a whole bunch of like definitive edition PS3 and 360 games to be brought to the Wii U, because now they had hardware that was essentially comparable, if not slightly superior, to both of them. Granted, 6 years later. But I think that's what they were banking on for third-party support, was ease of ports.
Your Call of Duty Ghosts and your Mass Effect 3s,
Right, and so with and Batman Arkham Asylum, like Arkham Edition, that type of thing. Whereas with the Switch, its existence was a necessity of relevance, because the Wii U was a complete flop, and they were basically, look, our handhelds are working, but we need to keep the console market alive, so let's fuse the two. They basically treated it like a handheld that happened to be their next-gen home console. And I think that they're going to stick with exactly that concept. And I would say that it depends, because right now, one of the biggest things working to Nintendo's advantage is that nobody can get the current-gen consoles except a Switch. It's very hard to get one. So because of that actually gives them plenty of extra time to be like, yeah, whatever, you can buy a Switch, so you can buy whatever version of the game we've got. But once enough people have Series X and PS5 where devs are like, look, man, we can't get the Switch to run this. I mean, dude, you've seen the news. Sonic Colors can't even, the Switch can't even run that. properly, and that was a Wii game.
To be fair, Sonic Colors Ultimate doesn't really run. Well, I mean, it runs better on the other consoles, but it's glitched up and not that great on everything.
And that's. But all I'm trying to say with that is not okay. Now that the hardware can't run it, but the hardware is more limited, and therefore there's less resources to get around certain issues that may arise. And it's when someone puts in the real effort, it's amazing what they can squeeze out of it, like The Witcher 3.
Or Doom,
right, but at the same time, those are kind of few and far between. Most of the time, that's not the case. But people are much like the Wii; they wanted to put their games on there because it would sell. The difference with the Wii, though, is that it became so associated with garbage that eventually legit devs stopped making games for it, and it was only like companies you've never heard of making like Carnival Circus Family or something, and it was just a terrible piece of shit console. But anyway, the Switch, it's kind of found that happy marriage of what the Wii U and the Wii were both trying to do to an extent, but it's still ultimately its Achilles heel is its hardware. And so I believe that they'll do a new home console with the Switch model. But I maintain, as I said before, I think it'll probably be at most a PS4 Pro in your pocket, and they'll kind of say like, "Hey, look, that's way better than it was." A lot of PS5 games have PS4 builds, so the technology's there to at least run these modern games on lower settings and get them to run on the Switch. But they're just gonna, as you said, Rob, they're just gonna repeat what worked. That worked. That exact concept worked, and if they stick with a family, which they always do, that's what you're going to get. You're going to get a PS4 Pro equivalency in your pocket in like 2024, 2025, probably for the exact same reasons that we just cited.
Here's just one last thing on the Switch to kind of tie it back into our initial discussion about physical media, especially. I think of the big three hardware makers, the one that I'm almost positive is going to keep physical is Nintendo. I think I'm about 95% sure that we want to call it the Switch 2 or the Super Switch
on the next unit. 100%. I would not.
Yeah,
there's no chance. They're like, hey,
Nintendo doesn't have the infrastructure to do a strictly digital model. Yeah.
Yeah, I actually mentioned this when I talked about the Steam Deck, right? And I entertained the hypothetical that, let's just say, I think the Steam Deck will flop, but let's just say it doesn't. And let's say it utterly destroys the Nintendo Switch's market share, which a lot of people point out, they're not competing in the same space. It's like, they kind of are. They're both portable.
Listen, there's a reason the Steam Deck was announced. There's a reason the Steam Deck was announced a day or two after the OLED model dropped, and everybody was pissed off about it. Yeah,
you're preaching to the choir here. But anyway, so all I'm saying is, I think it would take a lot for Nintendo to upgrade their digital infrastructure. I think that's just they're very Japanese minded on it, which is we only go with what we know works right now, and we only respond when there's a serious problem that needs to be fixed. That's just a traditional kind of Japanese business motive. And so they have no real reason to do massive overhauls to their digital infrastructure unless something like the Steam Deck comes in and utterly annihilates them, which, again, for the record, will not happen. But if it did, it will not happen. But let's just say hypothetically it did. Nintendo cannot possibly compete with Steam on its digital infrastructure. That's like Rob fighting Superman. It's not going to happen. And sorry, Rob, you can't beat Superman. I'm sorry. But in that case, they'd have to do something drastic, literally call up Microsoft and be like, put Game Pass on Switch. And then you don't have to make hardware, and we get Game Pass. That would be a ridiculous outcome, but it's far more likely than Steam Deck actually beating out the Nintendo Switch.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, there's no way the Steam Deck is beating the Switch. I mean, I'm definitely the Steam Deck, it's technically competing in the same type of space as the Switch, but Valve's intentions with that are not to beat Nintendo. They're more wanting to deal with all those other handheld PC things that are coming out from like those Kickstarter companies, and possibly dealt with Alienware, and to basically get PC gamers to see that no, with SteamOS, with Proton, you can have a viable gaming experience with everything on a Linux platform. You don't have to stick with Windows, so they don't have to worry about Microsoft like basically trying to get them out of being able to actually get installed on Windows 11 PCs.
Mm-hmm. See, that's actually an interesting point, because as you point out, their competition there to an extent is Microsoft. That fuels the fire even more that Microsoft would be very interested in putting Game Pass on Switch.
Oh yeah, no, definitely.
But
the next iteration
like,
of Switch.
But I mean, the Steam Deck, in theory, since you can install Windows on it, can run Xbox Game Pass.
Yeah, it can, but the person who buys the Steam Deck would have to do that. Valve
but I mean, I think that's the difference between the Switch and the Steam Deck. The Switch is marketed towards kids. It's marketed towards console gamers who just want to grab this thing, grab a copy of Pokemon, grab a copy of Mario Kart, and just go to town and play that shit. The Steam Deck is for the crowd that are I want to wipe this thing and put custom firmware on it, because it's basically just like this like reasonably priced kind of gaming PC that can run RetroArch or put or Xbox Game Pass on it and do all this, like see if it can run Dolphin emulator, like all that shit. That's
essentially
what
a gaming
the Steam
laptop
Deck is.
Without the keyboard.
Yeah.
Yep.
And so that the Steam Deck is designed for people to fuck with and be able to like hack and do this. Like it's built into the infrastructure of the thing, and being able to run your own custom operating system or install Windows. Like that's what that thing is. Like it exists in a different ecosystem, like of players, but it's still competition. Like there's a reason they announced it when it did, and there's a reason the pre-sale sold out like almost instantaneously.
Yeah, no, definitely. Them announcing it like right after the Switch OLED was a stroke of genius.
Because everybody's pissed at Nintendo, and you're like, oh, you want your 4K gaming handheld? Well, here it is. Yeah,
and that's probably why Valve had to do it. Where like, you're putting a $5 deposit down, and you can complete your pre-order when we can guarantee your pre-order is actually available, as opposed to just doing like a standard pre-order type deal.
Yeah.
Because they probably were like, oh crap, Nintendo screwed up. We need to pounce on this. At least, even if they're not like trying to beat Nintendo, I mean, the press alone is just done wonders for them.
Either way, they set themselves up for competition with Nintendo by doing it when they did it. I realize that, yes, that, like people keep saying, they're not trying to compete head to head, but again, that's like saying Nintendo was not trying to compete with the Xbox 360 or the PS3 with the Wii. You can't help but notice they are actually still in the living room with you. Like, they ate their lunch. You know what I mean? Like, they did eat their lunch, and in the case of the Wii, they won that fight, as awful as that is to think about. But yeah, so the future, if we're circling back around here, I think we've kind of covered all three of these in our general opinion on the end of this generation when it comes. I believe this is the make or break generation for physical media, and I'm pretty sure it will break. It's just holding for now. Any other opinions or thoughts on that?
And unfortunately, I agree with you on that, which kind of sucks since now that I'm into game collecting. But I mean,
hey, vote with your wallet. That's what.
Oh yeah, no. I mean, I'm not against like digital games. Like if there's a insane digital sale on like a PlayStation console or something, or I have a high tier gaming PC, I'll buy it digitally. If I really like the game, I'll actually then go out and buy a separate physical copy. But I mean, like with the PS4, like I used to be like in the mindset that digital and physical, it would depend on like better price or whatever, or what advantage I would want. But once the PS4 and Xbox One happened, there's functionally no difference between a physical or a digital game, other than having the physical disc. So at that point, I was just like, well, why would I get anything digitally unless if it's like super discounted on sale?
Yeah.
Which incidentally is very rare compared to the physical editions. At least within the console ecosystem. Obviously, that does not apply to Steam and the Steam sales and all that sort of stuff. But I've noticed with Xbox and PlayStation in particular, it's a lot of the time it's much easier to find a game on sale physically than it is digitally, where they just kind of remain at the MSRP kind of like all the time.
Oh yeah, no, it's definitely easier physically, but occasionally there have been sales that have dipped to sizable discount levels, but not like super.
Sure. And yeah, again, just remember, guys, like play your games however the hell you want to play your games. It's up to you. But just remember, at the end of the day, digital games are not ultimately property. They're a license. I mean, so are physical games, but at the end, what you acquire is the physical piece of plastic, which is yours to do with what you want, and theoretically can run down the road. Digital games do not really have that luxury, as we've seen many recent examples of. Things like the CMOS bomb that's in the PlayStation 3, 4, and 5 has various effects, and it's just, again, do what you want, vote however you want, but ultimately remember that it's basically your consumer rights you're giving up. Your right of free market competition, basically the ability to buy something in multiple places, to have choice. If you have to buy all your games from one distribution system, meaning Xbox Live or PlayStation Network, then they have no reason, no motivation to ever drop the price on anything other than maybe our competitor, PlayStation or Xbox, is doing it. Whereas a physical edition, get it on Amazon. You don't like that? Well, they have it cheaper at Best Buy. Oh, it's actually cheaper over at Target, et cetera, et cetera. You have the right to reuse. You have the right to resell. Physical property is property. Digital content is not. Lest we forget, what was it? Apple was in court, what was it, like last year, literally arguing that digital content is not property and no reasonable person should have the expectation that it is. Do you remember that? Because a guy paid like $25,000. He had like $25,000 worth of stuff he had downloaded on iTunes, and they revoked his account for something. And he's like, okay, then I want my songs. And they were like, no, this is not property. You just paid us for nothing. I don't know if they ended up winning that, but it was pretty substantial. Amazon did the same thing. They argued that digital content that they distribute through their website is not property as well. And those type of court cases will ultimately decide whether or not you have the right to this type of stuff. You're basically putting yourself at the mercy of corporations to just do what's in your best interests. Good luck with that.
Oh, God, yeah. Nope.
Anyway, I think that'll about do it for this particular subject, unless you guys have anything else to add.
No, let's go.
Nah, I'm good.
All right, man. Well, then, Joseph, thank you very much for joining us, and I look forward to having you back next month.
I look forward to being back.
All right, now it is time for our final subject of the evening. We are joined now by Keith. Keith, welcome back, man.
Hey, it's good to be back, everybody. No need to worry, Mr. Konami is far, far away. We're just here to talk about a couple of personal preferences we have with games. And it's great to see Rob again. Well, not see Rob, but hear Rob again. I was definitely worried about you, pal.
I have a face for radio.
Oh, that's what it is.
Keith really held his own. He had to really take control of the show, because with you gone and, just me, there really was only one talented person, and that was Keith. So, he really had to
I'm telling Abdullah. Jesus.
Abdullah wasn't here during that section.
Oh, Abdullah wasn't on the podcast.
He was It was Abdullah and me, and then Keith and me.
Oh.
So when it was just Keith and me, the only talented person around was Keith. So you weren't here, so he had to do 100% of the work, and so I think you owe him an apology.
I'm sorry that my talented, voice.
No. You're not talented. You're not talented.
I'm using your words, man. There's only one talented person when I'm not here.
Yes, there was only one talented person, and that was true either way. But at least you did some of the work.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're backtracking already.
I'm not backtracking. That's what I meant. Anyway, hi Keith.
Yeah.
So Keith,
how was Space Jam, Adam?
Let's not
say
we never did. Yeah, when we started up this call, that was like the first thing that opened up is Keith basically being like, "Oh yeah, all we did was talk about Space Jam." Like, so I was like, "Yeah, they're reviewing what happened on the previous episode." Anyway, so Keith, you had a subject here, and for this, all I wrote was odd gaming habits.
Yep.
But I imagine you want to clarify that more, so please do.
Yeah, a good way to put it would be actually odd gaming habits that are personal to you, or what others have, given you a little guff over. You know, a lot of us may have taken some heat by our friends by the way we play or by what we play with. You know, let it be controllers or a style of gaming or a type of game that you like, and stuff like that. Like, I kind of want to know and talk about like what it is about your particular gaming that some people might not have liked. You know what I'm saying?
Man, where do I even start? So
Goodness.
I make YouTube videos, right? So I about video games, but you'll notice I very rarely show actual gameplay, and there's a reason for that, which is when you do that, almost inevitably, like instantly, do people start complaining about it. So like at the time we're doing this, I just did my PS5 review.
Yeah, I was shocked at how much how much gameplay.
It was like all gameplay.
I decided to do that. I was like, you know what? I don't want to have a dedicated section where I just talk about like everything, and then by the way, let's go off and I'll show you footage for like 40 minutes uninterrupted of gameplay. Like, I thought, let's just mix them together, which I still think was the correct decision for the video. And on the whole, that seems to be most people's preference, though to some people's credit, they're like, I would have rather see no gameplay and just see you, which I appreciate. That's very nice, but I don't know how much you were paid to say that, but thank you. In that instance, I still get a lot of the comments like, lol, shitty at Demon Souls. And I'm like, I just walked around and I killed everything that came at me. What did I do wrong? But apparently it's not good enough. And, oh, that shit Spider-Man game. How could you play that? It's shit. It's all shit. Everything is shit. I'm like, what is your life where everything is just shit to you? But, like, that's just minor stuff. But you put out any YouTube video with gameplay in it, you inevitably get... A, your taste in gaming sucks, or B, you are bad at this game even if you're doing fine, which is always annoying to me. And then on the other side of things, personal preference that I get crap for all the time is that I do not play on PC, therefore that makes me a monster. I do not play games online, therefore I am a horrible, horrible human being. How could you not want to play an MMO or whatever the hell online all the time? Or even basic stuff. I really just don't like... I'm not competitive. So, like, the idea of, like, oh, let's all get together and play, like, a LAN party of Halo, like, doesn't appeal to me because I do not have a competitive bone in my body. I'm very much like... If we're gonna play online together, like if Rob and I right now, he's like, "Hey man, let's just hang and we'll play some like Halo Master Chief Collection and we'll just do like Halo 2 co-op." Rob would do like 98% of the work, and I would just run in like a lunatic, just shooting at things for fun and not really be taking the game too seriously because I really just do not like competition. It's not me, which drives people nuts.
By the way, I'd be totally down to play Halo tonight if you want.
It's not going to happen.
That's going to be really funny later on, I'll tell you that much.
Yeah, but so I guess what I'm saying is my gaming preferences are typically aimed at single-player offline experiences that I do not share any evidence of publicly. Again, that's why I love Shenmue to death, because it does not require me to play online. It has an unfolding story that's completely self-contained within its own game. I don't need to go online and download DLC or whatever to expand the universe of it. Nor do I feel any such inclination to show people the game I'm playing all the time and be like, how could you play it with the tank controls? And oh my god, the graphics. Shut the fuck up. Just shut the fuck up. So yeah, those are my gaming preferences versus my annoyances, which is basically never share any aspect of gaming you do online. Talking about is one thing, actually showing it. Like, I seriously, go look at the PS5 review and look at the comment section. While it's mostly supportive, you do get a bunch of people being like, that gameplay of, like, Demon Souls sucks, LOL. I'm like...
But you get negative comments on every video. What the hell
is
I know
the
difference
that. I know
from
that. No. The difference with that is it always happens with gameplay. Like, and it's usually about the gameplay. It's not even about the subject at hand. that's why it's always like there's always people out there who just want to criticize. Like it's as if the perception on the internet is every clip of video game footage that's on a YouTuber's channel needs to be like MLG, like Major League Gaming quality shit. And it's just like, I'm out. I'm not competitive enough to ever care to try to be that good at it.
I mean, you did gameplay videos for like a hot second there. What, like a couple of years ago? I remember you did like Let's Plays or whatever.
Yeah, and that's actually what killed it. Is I was like, all right, you know what? I'm gonna try doing this. Like the first one I did was based on the Dreamcast game that was never released, the Flintstones Viva Rock Vegas racing game. It was never released, although it sort of got a press release, a media-only release in Europe, and I actually had one of those copies. Like, I had just gotten it. I was like, hey, you know what would be kind of fun? This is like an oddball, rare game. Nobody really has this except pirate copies. Let's do a video where we'll sit down and play it. And I know it'll suck, but it'll be kind of funny, whatever. And it was mostly like, how dare you play a video game on your channel? And then like I just kind of ignored it, and I was like, let's try something else. And I played I think it was, what was it, End of Days, Days Gone, sorry, Days Gone for PS4. And I'm having a good time with it relatively, but then it's just, oh my god, look at the way he did that, look at the way it's just like, you know what, you can't even enjoy the actual gameplay. It was a little different when I was like with Game Society Pimps, because it was more socially accepted that you're supposed to be bad at the gameplay and you're making more of a narrative out of it, and that was a different animal entirely, and that I enjoyed. But like when you're actually like, hey man, let's just casually kick back and play a game and show that on the internet, it's like, good goddamn. In 13 years nearly of doing YouTube, that's like one of the biggest lessons I can take away from it, is unless you either truly do not care about the feedback you're getting, or you are legit like Major League Gaming level, just do not even bother. And yeah, so there you go. That's my annoyances in games, is when I share those gameplay experiences, people just get fucking pissed off.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I've definitely seen that many, many times. I actually work in a high school, and it's pretty funny watching them watch YouTube. All the kids always get a little free time on YouTube. It's just the way it is with schools nowadays. You can't stop it, so you let them have it. So when they're watching gameplay footage, majority of the time, they're using the incorrect terms for lag, and like, for some reason they think lag has to do with the internet connection and nothing to do with the controllers. It's very weird, the difference and stuff like that. They think lag and internet connection are exactly the same thing. And just in general, the youth, just every single time, all they ever do is attack the quality of the video or what was recorded on, which I thought was interesting. You know, exactly what you were saying, Adam, you know.
That explains a lot of the comment section then.
Yeah. Well, when it comes to me, one of my biggest things is I have to play a game with inverted controllers. Now, this all started because...
Oh, you're a fucking psychopath. Jesus Christ.
I'm freaking ridiculous, and I will stab your mother if she gets in my way. I'm sorry. I apologize. I mean, I will suffocate her sweetly with a loving embrace. Okay.
Make sure you get her some flowers, though. Get her some flowers.
No, that's for the grave, sir. For the grave.
Yeah, but they're gonna be there, right? They'll have the flowers. You don't need to get 2 sets. It's the least you can do.
I mean, once the urine settles, I'm sure I can put the flowers down. Okay.
That's fine. That's good.
No, but so what happened was when I first started playing first-person shooters with Quake and also on the N64 007 GoldenEye, I got really into first-person shooters. But then I was getting over to the next generation and the Xbox, and my buddy handed me a controller and a game called Halo, and his controller was already inverted, so I didn't really know. I thought that's just how you played the game of Halo. I didn't know that was a certain controller type. So that's just how I learned how to play that day, and from then on, it's inverted or bust for me. That, and also I tend to play a lot of pilot games, a lot of games with planes, which really, really helps with the inverted controllers. And I've taken so much shit over the years with that. It's been so annoying. Every single time, I gotta stop the game and switch it over. I play Resident Evil 5 with my buddy all the time just because we like killing zombies on couch co-op, and that's the way we like it. And every time I gotta pause the game to switch it, he goes... Oh, he makes the loudest just, oh, seriously, man. I'm like, come on, you want me to actually be effective or what? You know? So that's definitely my biggest pet peeve slash, you know, thing that annoys people is my inverted controllers. Because I deal with it most of the time whenever I have to pause the game to switch the controllers. But to me, it makes sense, man. A joystick is like a pilot control, man. You know? To me, it always made sense, so I stand by it. Inverted for life.
See, I could see that you must deal with that a lot based on the fact that that's how Rob reacted the second you
God,
mentioned it.
no, that I'm sorry, that's disgusting. I cannot abide by that.
Yeah, cross, man, you could never fly a plane. That's all I gotta say. So
I certainly hope I don't have to.
You're telling me you fire up Blazing Angels and you got like up is down is down? That's crazy talk to me.
I don't know. I mean, I don't use it in Star Fox. That's about the only one I could picture right at the moment.
Oh, I think Star Fox is the only game that I could ever play without it. But other than that, I can't do it. It just doesn't work for me. I mean, I can't. So it actually stops me from playing a lot of older games sometimes. It's kind of become. It has become a bit of a problem, but I still stand by it nonetheless.
So for me, like, if I'm thinking of like weird habits that like, I mean, I assume I'm kind of in the minority. Is one, I don't like rumble in my controllers. Anytime I play like a first-person shooter game or really anything, I turn the rumble off because I feel like it distracts me, and I'm like, I'm not gaining anything from it. Like, there's no like, at least I mean, I saw like no tactical advantage to playing, let's say, Halo with rumble on. Like, I feel like it kind of throws off my shots, you know, and things like that. So I don't see the appeal, and I really never have. Like, I didn't like it on the N64. Like, I got the rumble pack with Star Fox, like we all did, but I hated the weight that it added. It felt kind of like lopsided. So I'm like, I don't like this. And then when the GameCube came out, I actually used the Wavebird a lot, like, kind of as my standard controller for many, many years. And that didn't have rumble built in, so I just kind of got used to not having rumble in any GameCube controller. So even now, if I play Smash Brothers, even on the Switch, like, I turn off the rumble because I'm like, oh, I can't. Like, I'm not used to that. I think I might be the only person that didn't mind the 6-axis PS3 controller for that exact reason.
That is very, very interesting to me because I specifically went crazy when the Switch came out, and they came out with all these great controllers from like Power A and whatnot. And since they didn't have the rumble, I went out searching for a rumble on any other third-party controller, but nope, I ended up with just the Switch controller because of that. Because I'm addicted to rumble. But dang, that's weird. To me, that's so nuts.
The other kind of quirk that when I'm playing, I play mostly single player games. I'm kind of in the boat with Adam. I do play a little bit more online. Like, I'll have kind of like my game of the moment that I'll play a lot online or whatever, but that's about it. But when I do single player campaigns, unless I'm playing with other people, like couch co-op, like Halo or something like that, I generally play games on, at least for the first time, either on easy or normal. Like, I'm not like a guy that just wants a fucking really difficult game that I'm just gonna like die over and over and over again. You know, I generally just kind of like gaming to be a very leisurely experience. And that kind of is reflected in a lot of my taste in games. Like, I love games like walking simulators and weird shit like that, or like visual novels, but ironically not RPGs. So, like, yeah, I like, if I'm getting home from work and I'm like, I've had a long fucking day, I just want to sit in my game room and just play some games for a couple hours before bed. Like,
Franklin the Turtle represent.
Exactly. Like,
or Journey. Journey's a good one for that one.
Yeah, like,
I like Franklin the Turtle.
Yeah.
Come on.
No, but I like a lot of those abstract games that like have minimal gameplay. Like, I'm playing right now Tell Me Why, which is done by the same developers as what was that?
It's Strange something, right?
Life is Strange, yeah.
Life is Strange, yeah.
Yeah, which is like just kind of like a narrative story game. It's like with kind of these cool like supernatural elements. I'm like, I'm totally digging the shit out of that.
It's like a better version of Telltale, honestly.
Yeah. So, like, I really like those games where, like, there's not, like, the gameplay isn't, like, excruciatingly difficult, that I'm, like, struggling, and it's, like, because a lot of times, like, if I'm playing late at night, and I'm, like, if I'm playing a very difficult game, like, and I try and go to bed, like, I start thinking about it, like, trying to go to bed, and I can't, like, let my mind rest. So, like, I do like kind of easy games. Like, I'm playing Ghost of Tsushima right now. And it's like, yeah, I put that on the easy difficulty because, like, I love the art style, I love the story, and I just kind of want to go around, like, hacking up people with a fucking katana. It's like, I don't want, like, you know, every encounter with a random fucking grunt or a random NPC to, like, just be, like, a fight to the fucking death, yeah. But, yeah, so, like, I mean, but anytime I play with couch co-op, if I'm playing, like, let's say Halo, if I'm playing, me and Adam are sitting at my place and we're playing the Halo campaign, it's like, I'll probably put it on, like, hard. Just because I feel like it's the shared experience is better when it is, like, there is an element of difficulty to it. Because, like, it forces you to work together.
Good luck with that one. As I said before, you would be doing 98% of the work, and I would just be running in like a lunatic, which is fine. We would get through it, but it would be different.
I love all these dreams that Rob has of like, me and Adam hanging out on the couch playing Halo. He just
we just play fucking Franklin. Let's be honest.
And then we dim the lights, and suddenly someone's shirt comes off. No, bad one. No, mostly we just play Franklin the Turtle.
That's honestly that's what we play.
That honestly is the game we have played the most at his house. Like, it's Franklin the Turtle for the GameCube. What up? Get it. To respond to some of what you said though, Rob, I'm actually totally with you on the easy difficulty thing. Like, I don't play video games to piss myself off.
Yeah.
That's probably why that Demon Soul stuff, like, tell me about it. Like, people just getting irate at you for, I guess, doing fine, which is apparently not acceptable in Demon Souls. You have to do it as hard as possible and still somehow never die in a game that's known for killing you. Okie dokie. Anyway, so that's not really my thing. I like to enjoy a game, to legit enjoy it. It's only when a game truly captures me that I love it so much that I actually increase the difficulty and, like, beat it again for that challenge. But that is a rare thing. Like, I did that with Call of Duty 2 on the Xbox 360, and I got that, like, War Veteran achievement or whatever, which is, like, super hard to get, because that's, like, the Call of Duty setting where, like, one shot, you always die. So making progress is godly hard. But, you know, eventually I did it, and it was fun. But anyway, so that's my take on that, as well as you were talking about Rumble. You know, it's kind of interesting. Until you mentioned it, actually, until I got the PS5, I never thought a whole lot about Rumble. It was always kind of something like N64. It was interesting. It was like, oh, cool, this is a new thing. Even though it wasn't really what you would call a smart Rumble, it just kind of went off when it was told to go off. Over time, I think they got a little bit smarter about it. But in general, you're right. It just kind of felt like an extra weight or an extra thing going on, to the point where there were some games where I would actively turn it off because it just made the controller heavier, or it just felt like a distraction. But I'll say this to you, Rob, because I know you don't have a PS5 yet. The PS5 opened my eyes to the potential.
I've heard its Rumble is, like, literally next gen, like that.
It is between the two consoles, the Xbox Series X and the PS5. The only thing that has made me feel like one is a legitimate, holy shit, new generation experience is the PlayStation 5 controller and the way it functions with rumble and sound. It's like, I said this in my review, it has this little speaker, which I thought was, it's extra noise, it's just a gimmick. No, it helps with immersion, and the rumble really helps with immersion. Like, I'll give you a small example. Like, so I'm playing Spider-Man Miles Morales, which apparently is total shit, and I'm not allowed to like it, according to the comment section. But despite my having fun with it, which, again, you're not allowed to do on the internet. Exactly. So there's an opening scene where Miles Morales is on a subway. And so you're just listening through you're watching this on the TV, you're listening to the subway and all that stuff and everything. And the controller, on the other hand, actually, because I've been in subways, even in New York, with you, Rob, no less, and the controller vibrates in the exact same vibration pattern that you actually feel when you're on a subway in New York.
Yeah.
Like, to the point where it was creepy. And, like, the little speaker on it actually has extra noises that help with that sort of immersion. So it almost feels like this weird surround sound. Like, so the stuff that, like, it feels like, and this might just be, you know, partially the placebo effect of being excited, but like it felt like when the controller was below me, I was hearing sounds that would be below me. Whereas if I held it up higher, it would feel like sounds that would be above me. Now, granted, that was just in that one experience, and that is an early PS5 exclusive, essentially tech demo type of game where they're meant to display all these concepts. That doesn't mean most of these will get utilized.
Have you tried, what is it, like Astro's Playroom, or
no,
like the thing that like actually really shows off the capabilities?
Right, I know what you're talking about. No, I have not. But but that's what I'm saying. If it could do that just on the opening cutscene of a Spider-Man game, I was like, wow. It really was. The controller was easily the best thing about the PS5 experience, and I would argue is probably the best thing about this generation so far, because it's the first time I felt like something legit was like, holy crap, exciting. Honestly, since the Xbox 360 legitimately impressed the shit out of me when I first saw it in person. I think I've said this in the past. Like, I remember naively thinking the original Xbox, like, it wasn't even possible to do better than that. Like, whatever came next, it was going to be like that, but a little better. And then it was like, oh my god. And I remember like just being legitimately stunned by the visual difference between the two, thinking that that type of experience was over. I didn't feel that at all going into the Xbox One, nor did I even feel that going into the Series X. And that's probably because we had all these like little minor upgrades over time. But that controller, that legitimately felt like, okay, you guys did something here. And so that's a positive. We're not supposed to be talking about positives. It's not supposed to annoy us. Anyway. That's all I'm saying is Rumble has the potential to be good, and that controller might change your tone on it.
Yeah. I mean, like, I even played, what was that game that came out with the Switch? It was launched, the 1-2 Switch. Where it had, like the mini games, like, are based around the quote-unquote HD Rumble. Like, you know, I appreciate the subtlety that goes into like having Rumble enhance a gaming experience nowadays, but it's one of those things where it's like it's just a part of me from like back in the day that's just kind of carried forward. Like, so I can honestly see, like, if I'm playing, let's say, a new Call of Duty campaign, and they have, like, the triggers, like, react like they're, like, a real gun would or something like that. It's, like something really crazy and cool. Like, I'd probably turn that on, maybe for campaign. But anytime, like, I'm playing in, like, a multiplayer situation, like a competitive, like, online, if I'm playing Halo online, that Rumble is fucking off. Like, because I feel that it distracts from, like, me kicking ass. You know, or the same goes for Smash Brothers, the same goes for some fighting games. It's like, I just don't, like, I don't see the benefits of that, because in a multiplayer setting, you're not necessarily worried about the immersion. You're worried about the flow. You're worried about, like, the pace of the game and coming out on top. Like, but in, like, as you mentioned, like Spider-Man, and you're riding a subway, and like the controller's vibrating like a subway car would, that's an immersive aspect, and that I could see being a lot more appealing in a single player mode. But like competitively, no way, no how.
No, I agree with you, and that's all the controller in that context is meant to do, is meant to give you additional immersion. But I agree with you in concept that it can be very distracting. But it is weird. Like, you have to understand, my opinion, if you had asked me a week ago, would have been very different than my opinion right now. Because, like, a week ago, before I played the PS5 at all extensively, my opinion would have been like, Rumble is fine. I enjoy it. I like to have it. Now I look at it like it needs to be the way the PS5 does, and I almost want to turn off all previous Rumble systems because they just seem so ridiculously stupid by comparison.
Yeah.
Like, I'm legit sitting here thinking, like, if I go back and play N64, I may never use the Rumble again, because now I realize, like, how crap it is by comparison, which is not really how I usually think, but, like, you have to understand, this is just hitting me, like, right now. So this is my first reactions on all this.
Man is euphoric, bud.
Yeah. But that said, Rob, get a PS5 so you can know what I'm talking about.
I really want one. Like, you know, like we were just talking before we started recording, like Sony just did something fucking stupid, like they always do. And I'm like, I tell Andrew, I'm like, man, I really fucking like hate PlayStation sometimes. They just piss me off, but by like doing this or this or that. But I'm like, do I want a PS5? Fuck yeah, I want a PS5. I really, really do want one. Yeah. But,
yeah, Jim Ryan.
I also do not have a PS5 as well. They're just as hard to get for me. So I chose the Xbox. I can only choose one when they first came out, and I went with what I knew.
Yeah. So I mean, I love the Series X, and I actually do really like the Series X controller, like the way it feels, like that kind of rubberized grips on the bottom. Like I'm all about that. But like the second I held a PS5 controller, I've never like spent some real time playing a system on my own, but holy shit, man, that controller's phenomenal. If that worked on a PS4, I would already have one. That would have replaced my PS4 controller, you know, even if it didn't do all the HD rumble bullshit. From a sheer comfort level and a design standpoint, the thing is like S tier. It's really good.
I mean, that is one thing I can get. I can get controllers.
Yeah, no, I mean, you go. I mean, I have digital press like stocked with PS5 controllers because anytime somebody buys a PS5, it's usually in that bundle from GameStop or something that comes with a couple games and like a Xbox on a PlayStation like gift card and like an extra controller, so they could like kind of jack up the price with add-ons. And so it's like everybody sells the games and everybody sells the extra controller.
Yeah,
that they don't want.
It's called bundling. Yeah, we did it at Circuit City for the 360 and the PS3 and pretty much every other system it came out.
The Xbox was like that too. You had to buy like 3 or 4 games with it when it came out.
Yeah,
that was my experience.
Yep.
That was my experience over.
That was actually what stopped me from getting the original Xbox. I'm like, okay, well, I'm just going to go get a GameCube for $200 and just call it a day then.
We actually found out at the time it was against our city laws to actually do that. And if anybody actually called us out on it, we would have to sell them the 360, but most of the time people didn't even know.
Hey man, funny. I mean, like, this is fucking GameStop. It's like this, like, I mean, they tried to argue that they were an essential business during lockdown for COVID. So it's like, yeah, they're in the business of fucking, you know, just bending laws to suit them.
So absolutely.
So here's a fucking weird gaming habit. Like, okay, so Franklin the Turtle aside, anytime Adam comes over and we're hanging out in my game room, and I'm like, "Yo, you want to play some like Mario Kart or something like that? You just want to like, I don't know, play fucking Call of Duty 2. I don't give a shit, yeah." And it's like, no, let's play like Go on the GameCube or like fucking, you know, Franklin the Turtle. But that was a happy accident. I'm not gonna lie.
So what he's basically, just to reiterate or repeat this, but like cleaner. What he's basically saying is, why don't I ever want to play like popular good games? And I'm always just, hey, let's put on some shit that no one's ever heard of. Yep. Because I think the fun of it isn't just the game. It's two idiots basically discovering some weird obscure title that no one has played in 20 years. And just being like, you're essentially having fun because the game is probably really bad, and that in of itself is like the fun, is that you're just actually playing it. Yes, of course you could sit down and play Mario Kart, but I could do that by myself, and
that's sad. That's sad.
Why?
Just like playing Mario Kart, just like in the dark by yourself.
Playing single player offline. To me, that's a way better experience.
Oh wow! I don't know, man. Yeah. Something about the couch co-op, I just can't let it go.
Yeah.
Man. I could play any first-person shooter couch co-op and just have
absolutely.
I have no competitive bone in my body.
Well, it's not even competitive. It's cooperative campaign. Yeah.
Oh, that's
no, I'm talking about like Mario Kart. When you're sitting there playing it with other people, I'm just like, I really hate this. Like, I just don't want to be doing this. That's just how I am.
I can't stand playing fighting games though. Couch co-op though. That always gets a little too heated, and I can't really do that anymore. My mom says I shouldn't do that anymore. One thing specifically I do still take flack for is the fact that I can't. I got to play my classic consoles on a tube TV, and it's just I have to do it. Like no matter what.
You're watching the wrong channel, man.
I can upconvert everything, but I love putting stuff on to my old tube TV. I can't help it. I love learning. I love learning, and I do upconvert things and switch out wires and stuff like that, and have like HD versions of a lot of things. But when it comes down to it, if I had a choice, I like to play on my old Mickey Mouse tube TV.
I saw a surprising amount of those Mickey Mouse tube TVs in Goodwill outlets out in Washington.
Oh man,
Really threw me off.
Those are so great, man. It's so.
There's a reason they're in the trash.
Oh yeah. Have you ever heard the speakers on those things, man? They got detachable stereo speakers. They're fantastic. All right. That's my own little thing.
So connecting stuff to a CRT is in of itself its own like minefield of annoyance, I suppose. But yeah, there's obviously a lot of people that just absolutely love doing that, and I'm not in that camp. Let's just put it that way.
It's just when you want to feel, instead of just playing the game and enjoy it for the art of gaming, it's when you want to feel the straight nostalgia of, I want to feel like I did when I was 10 years old. Sometimes you want to take a bite of those nostalgia berries every now and then. You know?
See, I understand that in concept. The problem is I have absolutely no fond memories of playing something on a CRT. I just remember sitting there thinking, like, God, I wish TVs were better. For me, that's like a frontiersman being offered the option to like go to a hospital and be like, no, I want to remember before hospitals. I want to try to give birth in a field and have my leg get cut off. Like, everything about that sounds fucking awful to me. But even as a kid, I thought, wow, TVs kind of suck right now. Like, I legit remember this, and I think it was because technically, even in the early 90s, there were HD TVs, but, like, they were extraordinarily rare. Like, only, like, super wealthy people had it, or, like, maybe a bar would have one where it was, like, their only TV. And I think what probably happened is at some point, like, I must have seen one and been like, well, fuck, I'm poor. You know what I mean? Like, I can't like unsee this. But yeah, I don't know if that was it or that's just some mismemory I've got somewhere, but I do remember actively as a kid thinking like it is genuinely hard to see some of the stuff on the screen at times.
Yeah.
And now I know why as an adult. So I have no fondness for going back and doing something wrong. But that's me.
Yeah, I mean, I'm in the same boat with Adam. Like, there was definitely a turning point, and I can actually pinpoint exactly where it was for me. When the Xbox 360 came out, and this wasn't even the HDMI one. This is like the base model.
Yeah.
The original, like, not the core, the Pro system.
The component, yeah.
Yeah, it had the components. And when I first got it, like, I got it from Best Buy, and I went home. It was actually my birthday. And I went home, and I plugged it in. My parents had a 720p... like 1080i, like, I guess you can call it like enhanced definition or like very low high def.
It's called an EDTV is what you're saying.
EDTV, yeah. So like they had one of these TVs in the living room. It was big, like 65-inch thing. So I'm like, oh man, I can't wait to like see like this new next gen console. I bet it looks great. And I plug it in there, and I'm like, holy fuck, you know, going from like the OG Xbox to the PS2 running composite, like on my CRT, to that was like, holy shit, we're talking about next gen leaps. That's a fucking next gen leap. And then
that's literally the same example I just used, going from the OG Xbox to 360, probably for the exact same reason.
Yeah, but then the exact same day I got that, I'm like, okay, I'm finished playing in our living room, and I'm like, I'm gonna go play in my bedroom, where I had, like, granted, a very good CRT. It was like a Sony Trinitron. Like, it was 36 inch. It was a very, like, this is like the TV that like the retro gaming nerds like look for, like, because it was a top of the line CRT. But it didn't have components. It just had S-Video and composite. And I bring this Xbox up there, and with the 360 component cables, you could either do component or composite from the same cable. And I plugged it in, and I was playing Dead Rising. I remember the first one, and I was like, I can't fucking see anything. Like, this looks fucking terrible. Like, you couldn't read any of the text. Like, the textures were fucking terrible. And I'm like, that was the big fucking eye-opening thing. Even to the point where when the Wii came out, like, that year, and I picked one up, like, the day one, I ordered from Nintendo.com, I ordered the Wii component cables. Because I'm like, I know what this thing looks like through a high-def TV, and I know what this is going to look like through my CRT. And I'm like, I don't want it to look that way anymore. And it's like, I never went back after that. Never did.
So, to kind of put a final point on that. Basically, Keith, like, it's good that you have these nostalgic memories, and somehow the warm glow, the radiation of a CRT somehow helps you. That's wonderful, I guess. I refer to it with radiation because to me it's a cancer. I hate CRTs, to be completely blunt about it.
To each their own.
But yes, exactly, and that's the point I'm trying to make. Is that does something for you beyond the technical, which is the emotional, and that's very important, and that's a good thing, and I'm glad it makes you happy. But that reaction you get out of it is the polar opposite of what I get out of it. To me, that's like that's nightmare fuel. Like, if I woke up and all my TVs were CRTs, I'd like throw myself out a fucking window. Like, that is the worst case scenario for me as far as like visual medium. CRTs, I hate them.
I gotta say though, when it comes to CRTs, it is anything that is kind of Xbox generation or OG Xbox generation and up is all up converted up to my LCD 1080p TV here. So it's only for the older systems I actually had and did run on a CRT TV. So just saying that, I'm not running like an OG Xbox through the Mickey Mouse.
You do not need to be defensive about your reasoning for doing things. I'm simply explaining, like, I get it, because there's a lot of guys like you who run it through that because they enjoy it that way. I'm simply saying I can't because of two reasons. One, the actual technical aspects of it are goddamn inferior to the point of pissing me off. But two, I have no positive nostalgia for it, because to me it literally brings me back to, remember when TVs sucked? Yeah, I don't want to remember that. So I'm glad it does something good for you, and that goes for everybody out there listening. If you like playing a CRT and that makes your gaming experience better and more fun, then don't let some dickhead on the internet like me tell you you're wrong. Just go out and enjoy it.
And vice versa. Don't be a dick if you're about CRTs, guys. Come on. Everyone likes their own things.
Actually, I do have like one question. Like, I absolutely agree with Adam. Like that that high def TVs with upscalers and everything is the optimal way to play games. Like, the only thing I can maybe see is consoles that run exclusively in RF. Like, if I'm playing a ColecoVision or a Fairchild Channel F or something like that. Like, my 4K TV in my game room is fairly top of the line, and I have got everything running through HDMI, and it does actually have a RF jack. I've played an original Magnavox Odyssey through that thing. It's like just to see if I could. And while I use that to play these older consoles that are RF exclusively, I could see the allure of having CRTs strictly for like second gen stuff. Just because RF is really, there's no easy way of upconverting that, and just running it straight into your coaxial input on your TV is not great on a modern TV. So maybe it could just RF being like the bottom of the fucking barrel of
devil's pitchforks.
Yeah, don't
forget RF is the connection. Upgrade over the devil's pitchfork.
So it's
yes.
So it's only the second worst thing ever fucking put for a video format. Like, then I could see it's like, okay, CRT is going to introduce all of this distortion with the scan lines, and it's like it does a number on like systems that have better video outputs natively. But for RF, I could see that. Like,
so I would be very curious to see that, Rob, because I actually have an old Sony ED TV from like 2005. And it has RF.
Is it a tube or?
No. It's a flat panel. ED TV, and it actually runs RF stuff really well. That's actually the only reason I've held on to it.
Yeah.
And that's why I'd be curious to see what you're seeing versus what I'm seeing, because if that's the case, that argument doesn't hold water anymore.
Yeah,
because there are ED TVs out there that make RF look quite good.
Hey, you know what?
Devil's Pitchforks ain't shit we can do about, but RF.
Hey, man! It's like, if next time you come over, if you don't want to play Franklin, let's play some Magnavox Odyssey 2 and see.
I would fly out there just for that.
Oh yeah!
It's like, does your 4K not have an RF port, or?
I don't even know. I don't remember, to be totally honest. I've clearly never used it. I know that the EDTV does it very well, because I remember when my previous TV before I got the 4K was a Samsung TV, and that one had an RF jack on it, but it just straight up no RF console would work on it for some reason.
Okay.
Cable lines would work at the time, but no RF console. So I held on to the EDTV for that reason, and then I realized like how much better it looks, because I would start running. So like, this is a dumb example. I have that Divers 2000 Dreamcast. That is, to this day, the only CRT I own. But that TV actually does have RF input. So there was a couple of times I actually needed to use it just to test stuff, like a Famicom or whatever. And I was like, this looks truly unwatchable in this form. It is horrible. Yeah. And then I would fire it up on the EDTV and realize, oh, it's so much cleaner. It doesn't have any distortion. It's not god-awful. Why the fuck would any sane person use a CRT? Yeah. But again, I can't argue with the power of nostalgia. That's an emotional reaction, not based on common sense. No offense, Keith.
No, if you do come out and you want to like see an actual like a real good comparison at Digital Press, we have that like little museum in the back. I've never we don't usually turn it on, but we have those consoles in the back actually hooked up to their Commodore 64 computer monitors. So like good little CRTs. They're very desirable for that reason. They make composite and RF look really good. And I've got a Intellivision and a 2600 running through those, and they do look very good. Like for RF, it's like, yeah, those colors do pop on there. It's like it is not as bad as some of the RF I have seen.
To be fair, though, and I have to acknowledge this or I'll get a bunch of people complaining about it, I'm very aware that the Divers 2000 is far from the best CRT ever made. I want that very clear. There's obviously better ones. I'm just saying, fuck CRTs. That's all I'm saying.
Could you imagine? Could you imagine what the fucking video conferencing quality looks like on that thing?
Oh god,
it was designed for that purpose, man. I actually fired up the Dream Eye once just to test exactly that, and it's like a 1 megapixel camera. it's so hilariously bad. It's like everything is blurry. It doesn't look good at all. It's just like, yep, cool. I actually think shout out to Dreamcastic channel, PC Wizard 13, my buddy Jonathan. He has like 3 names. He actually did an entire video using the Dream Eye as like a webcam, just to like, and he played like I think he tried to make an entire video with it. It was pretty intense. But anyway, so I think that'll about do it, unless you guys have anything else to say.
No, I think that about covers it.
Yeah, I definitely think
we've gone off the road enough.
Oh, I love going off the rails. That's one of my favorite parts of some of my subjects, is the fact that I like to start it slow and we just go. Yeah. We're all right, man.
Well, all right, perfect. Well then, Keith, thank you very much for joining us as always. Look forward to seeing you again in the future.
Absolutely.
And I want to give shout-outs to everyone else. So Joseph Tamburino for joining us. Appreciate it. Abdullah, of course. Abdullah is king. Thank you very much, Abdullah, for being with us. Shout-outs again to Julian Espinoza, Leafy Poo, Luis Bonilla, Loke, Michael Kelly, and Trey Wagner. And thank you guys. I guess, Rob, you're all right. Anyway, thank you guys very much for watching and listening. If you please like, comment, subscribe. Talk to us. Leave us messages. We always appreciate that. Follow us on all the social things.
Tell Adam that he's terrible at Dark Souls or whatever.
Yeah. Please do. Leave that comment in here so we know that you listen to the whole thing.
Good comments, too.
Yeah, well, that's fine. But yeah, follow us on the social media stuff. All that information is in the description. Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, Discord, all that sort of thing. Anyway, thank you very much for listening, and we'll see you all later.
Bye.
Good night.